we'll open up this commission meeting for the month of July. Welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. We do have a full agenda and we'll move along as quickly as possible. But first of all, we want to announce that Chairman Tate is not with us tonight. He is out of town. So please recognize that he ain't here. So we'll carry on. And but thank you for being here. And we don't have no call-ins, I don't think. Mr. Chairman?
No call-ins.
No call-ins, okay. Any announcements? Ms. Shields? Go. Ms. Manners? Okay. If not, we'll move on to a moment of silence in our Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask that after the moment of silence, Ms. Shields will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And during our moment of silence, we would ask that you remember the Charlie Messer family. A lot of you probably don't know Charlie. Myself, the county manager, and the chairman have traveled many miles with Charlie Messer. He is the vice chairman of the Henderson County Board of County Commissioners. And Charlie passed away Friday morning very unexpectedly and very sudden, after a sudden illness. So remember that family. Charlie Messer was a good man and a great commissioner for the people in Henderson County. So remember that family, those families in Macon County who's here prior. And we have a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We do not have nobody waiting on the telephone, but we do have one signed up. Does anybody else need to sign up to speak during the public session? We just have one. So we'd like to welcome Debbie Westerman. Debbie, come on up. And if you don't know Debbie Westerman, you might know her husband. But that's another story.
Exactly.
Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, and thank you for taking time to listen to.
You can unmask so you talk to us so we can hear
Okay,
you.
great, thank you. Thank you for taking this time to listen to our concerns. I am here on behalf of my parents, Clayton and Elaine Marshall. They live at 291 LJ, and behind the property is Steam Holler, and everybody that I've talked in this county has seemed to know Steam Holler and the conditions that are back there. I was made aware of the horrible conditions of the property being dilapidated. There's no power to the property. They were using my parents' creek for water because they have no water. My first concern was some pets that were on property. I talked to Carl Gillespie in May, and we talked to Animal Control. Animal Control went in, took all of the pets that were there, tied up, emaciated, but had to give the puppies back to them for some reason. I'm not sure what the reason was. Carl sent me to talk to Code Enforcement, and I went and talked to Kyle at Code Enforcement, and he was well aware of the property and the situation there, and he had been out.
Who gave you
Kyle in Code
Kyle
Enforcement.
Jennings.
Mm-hmm. And he was well aware of the conditions on Team Holler, and he had actually been with Jimmy Team when they pulled the power. Apparently they were stealing power from Duke Energy, so Duke Energy had them pull the power. So that had to be back before May. So for all this time, they have no power, they have no water, they have no plumbing. From Kyle, he said he has basically done everything he could possibly do. He really said he didn't have much teeth to do much of anything else. So he sent me to, I'm not sure what the name of the organization was, but it's by the Unitarian Church. I talked to somebody there about the junk in the yard. He said he has done everything he can possibly do. Sent me to the courthouse to get non-trespassing signs for my parents, and then back to the county commissioners. So that's why we're here today, because we're at a loss of what to do. The property is very dilapidated. I have tons of pictures to show you if you're interested. I've even talked to Elise Sutton, who was a probation officer that has been out to that property several times. Everybody that I've talked to has been out there, but nobody can seem to do anything about it. So we don't know where to go next, and we're looking for some information, some help on how we can. There's health hazards out there. They're using my parents' creek. One day I had to take my mother to the eye doctor, and as I was dropping her off and leaving, going down LJ, one of the ladies that lives behind her was walking down the street with clothes on. Called 911. It's going to be a vision I can't get out of my brain, but they could not do anything because she was already in her property by the time they got out there. So, and apparently the clothing is an option back there because other neighbors have had problems with them being unclothed and bathing in my parents' creek. So we're just here to find out what our next steps are, how we can eradicate the situation. It is deplorable to know that anybody in Macon County live in this situation. It's deplorable to know that my parents are property owners and are very elderly and they can't do anything. So we're here to find out what we can do next.
Now, Debbie, I've been involved with that, and as Carl has too. We sent them up for the, hopefully we could, not hopefully, but trying to hang something like the leaking oil tanks. Has anybody ever sent a registered letter to the property owner?
Stating what? That they
I'm
need.
sorry?
Stating, what do you want the registered letter to say?
I was wondering if the health department sent one, or anybody has followed up with that.
Everybody in the county has done, according to what they're telling me, the limit of the laws that they can enforce. And apparently there are some county employees that don't have any teeth to do anything else.
If it's the landowner, you'll have to, whoever's occupying land is one thing, and of course the councilor can speak to that. The landowner, if it's a health hazard, or Chester, you want to speak to that?
Are these people using this land with the owner's permission, or do you know?
The owner does live there.
The owner lives there. Okay.
And the,
Is there a home there, or are they camping out, or what are they doing?
I want to hear the answer. Go ahead.
there are several travel trailers that are dilapidated and falling apart. I don't think anybody in this room would have a pet living in those conditions because there is no water. So how are they making sure these pets are getting water, except going to my parents' creek?
How old are these folks that live there, age-wise? Range of ages?
I'd say the owner is about 40 maybe.
He looks like he's 60 because of.
Is there any indication of substance abuse
Oh, yes.
issues there?
Oh, yes.
As in the illegal variety?
Yes. Actually, when we were putting a fence up, a gentleman came and he wanted to know what we were doing. He did not live there. But he told me he was a Christian and he was taking care of these people because the condition they were living in. I talked to a person in a community that is well known for drug activity, and he said he was not there as a Christian. He was there to deliver a supply of narcotics so that they can deliver them to the county.
Has the sheriff been involved?
Chester, just a little bit of history that Mr. Bill touched on. When Debbie reached out to us, she had some accompanying pictures that gave, I feel like, a very good description, visual description of the property. And Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, did I send those pictures to you or not? Yeah. And Mr. Manager, correct me if I get off track, but I asked him to make sure that the proper authorities within the county received that documentation so that the county could do what they could do. And correct me if I'm wrong too, the feedback that we got was that those county departments, being inspections, being health department, being sheriff's department, had done everything that they could within the parameters that's set forth. That doesn't change the fact that it's scary for them to go up there and it's unsightly. But and Ronnie chime in, but it seemed like to me we just kind of got to the dead end of the road, and to the point of saying, you know, that legally, while it doesn't appear to be right, we don't have any remedies. The county doesn't have any remedies.
May or may not. I think clearly your folks would have the ability to consult with an attorney to figure out if there's any sort of private civil action that could be brought. That may or may not be possible. And I don't want to get anybody's hopes up here, but there's a limited statute in North Carolina dealing with what are defined to be nuisances within the meaning of that particular statutory provision. And they're very limited what's defined as nuisance there. And you've got to meet that criteria in order to bring it. But county could theoretically bring one of those actions if this situation fits that particular statute. We did one of those, as you'll recall, at the behest of the sheriff in a situation probably a year or two ago.
So would it be,
In fact, the FBI came in and assisted in that regard.
so would it be, would it authorize this board to authorize the manager to get with you, Chester, and pursue that, and you can talk to Ms. Westerman or her parents and the sheriff and see if that's a possibility in the situation?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those situations where we're going to need a little bit more time than public session in a commissioners meeting to see whether or not that statute might potentially fit. The tricky part of it is you can't go on hearsay. You've got to have admissible evidence in those situations, which is more difficult than you might imagine to put together. But I think if the county is interested in us pursuing and looking into that, I think that's something that we could at least do. But beyond that, the only thing I know to do is to go back, talk with Kyle a little bit. Is there a septic system that is on that property?
As far as we know, the species are going on the ground.
No, that's something I can talk further with Kyle about. I think there may be able to be something done about that. Maybe bits and pieces that can be dealt with, but maybe not the whole ball of wax, if you will. So I think probably the county's inclined to have me look at it on behalf of the county. I can't represent you. I can't represent you. I can only represent the county. But I can certainly look at it from that standpoint and see whether or not the county has any possibility under that statute, as well as checking to see what the other regulatory authorities have done, see if they might have possibly done something.
So that's what'll happen, Debbie. If the board approves, we'll instruct the county manager to pursue the situation, see if there's anything we can do to give you folks. Now, the sheriff just walked in, he knows this place well. And
We'll need to get your contact information, your parents' contact information.
we'll just fill that out there before you.
And there's a number of neighbors up there that are willing to speak.
And I would encourage you to touch base with them and see if they're willing to share their stories. The more information that we have, the more admissible evidence that we have, the more likely we might be able to get something done. I don't want to send you home thinking that there's definitely a solution here. That statute is extremely limited. And what I'll be doing is asking some questions to see whether or not we can bring this matter within the confines of that statute.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
listening.
you. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Debbie's gotta go. You gotta-
We don't need a motion. I think it's just consensus. We do have the consensus of the board to let the county manager move on forward to that and the county attorney. Okay, adjustments to approval to the agenda. Ms. Shields. Mr. Ramsey?
Need to add budget amendments. What are those numbers, Lori?
25 and 27.
Budget amendment 25 and
To
27.
the consent.
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
No, sir.
Mr. Gillespie?
No, thank you for asking.
Chester?
No, sir. No, sir.
I do want to add one under reports and presentations. It'll be D1. I have asked school superintendent, Dr. Chris Baldwin, to attend to give a report not only on the school situation, but what the governor announced today at 3 o'clock. And we know that Dr. Baldwin and his staff, we've met with him several times on different matters, and it's a tough road for Dr. Ball, so we'll have him come and speak. Does anybody else want to speak before the board, before we move on? Okay, if not, I'll get a motion to approve the agenda as. Motion been made and seconded, we approve the agenda as presented. Any further changes? If not, all in favor, vote aye. Any opposed? Okay, so under reports and presentations, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to have the principal chief of the Eastern Band of Cherokee with us. Chief Sneed is the 28th principal chief of the Eastern Band, and we've had the privilege of working together on several projects. And if you don't know this, Chief Sneed has been much more than a principal chief. He's a veteran of the Marine Corps for his country. He was once recognized as Teacher of the Year from the National Indian Teachers Association. Well, probably y'all don't know that. And he's also a pastor. So there's a lot more to Chief Sneed than the principal chief of the Cherokee. But you're welcome, Chief Sneed. Welcome to Macon County. We welcome your friendship. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much. That was quite an introduction. I don't even get that back at home. Well, thank you so much for allowing me some time this evening. I'll move as expeditiously as possible through this issue, although it is a bit of a complex issue. There are a lot of layers to it, so I will move as quickly as possible. I do want to give some background so that both commissioners and the public understand the economic impact of the casinos, both in Cherokee at our resort property and also in Murphy at our Harris Valley River. Since opening, the economic impact as measured in 2018 on Western North Carolina is estimated to be at $750 million. How that breaks out is between 2018 and 2020, we've spent an additional $330 million. Well, we have that financed. That's going to be the expansion of Tower 4 and also our convention center. We are booking into year 7 already on convention business, and it's not even built yet. So there's going to be a tremendous economic impact there as well. In order to generate these revenues, the casino hires employees, but also contracts with vendors. In 2018, the direct impact was we had 3,069 employees from the six westernmost counties in North Carolina. Jackson County, Swain County, and Cherokee counties, that amounted to 10% of the employment within those 3 counties. An additional 5,411 jobs were created indirectly, totaling 8,480 direct and indirect employees to both of our casino properties. The average salary for direct employees is 72% greater than the average for the six-county region. Almost 90% of our direct employees are not enrolled members of the tribe. In fact, it's a very small portion of those 4,000 some employees that are enrolled members. I think about 400. We have $129 million in direct wage and salary income that goes to casino employees that is fed into the local economy, and an estimated $276 million in indirect wages and salaries, including the Eastern Mountain Cherokee Indians. Casino purchased goods and services from vendors in North Carolina counties totaled $39 million in direct spend and $4 million in indirect economic impact. Why is that important? Every opportunity I get to speak to our neighbors in the region, I remind everyone that what happens to the Eastern Band happens to this region. We are inextricably connected. One of the things I appreciate about being a member of the tribe, now being a member of the Southwestern Commission, is the relationship we've been able to build with our partners in the region. And the view that I've had since being in the Principal Chief's office is that we are in partnership together. What is good for one of the counties and what is good for the tribe is good for the region. So that is the economic impact story behind the casinos that Eastern Band operates. Why I'm here tonight and what I want to speak to you about is you're all probably aware now that the Department of Interior has taken land into trust in Kings County specifically for the purpose of casino for the Catawba tribe of South Carolina. So I want to give some background there. Again, there are a lot of layers to this, but I'll try to move quickly. The Catawba Nation was a tribe that was granted a settlement with the state of South Carolina and the federal government in 1993. As part of that settlement agreement, they agreed to a $50 million settlement. They agreed to a portion of acreage in South Carolina. They also agreed that their land would be subject to South Carolina law. In regard to gaming, they agreed in their settlement act that they would not be permitted to game under IGRA. Now, IGRA is the Indian Game Regulatory Act that was passed in 1988, signed into law by then President Ronald Reagan. In their settlement agreement, any opportunity for gaming would be negotiated with the state of South Carolina. They tried repeatedly with the state of South Carolina. South Carolina has some of the strictest anti-gaming laws on the books, so that just didn't happen. They sued state. They went all the way to the state Supreme Court, but they lost their case. At that point, about 10 years ago, they connected with a gentleman named Wallace Sheaves, who, I'll try to be polite, we has a checkered past when it comes to gaming, and I won't get into the details of that. They tried repeatedly to move into North Carolina. About 7 years ago, that was opposed greatly by then North Carolina Attorney General Roy Cooper, who of course is not the governor of the great state of North Carolina. He opposed it. North Carolina legislature opposed it. The citizens of North Carolina opposed it. What has happened in the interim since then, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina introduced a bill into the Senate back, I think last November, or it may have been February. It was November. On the Senate side, it was a very stark bill, and it simply said that this acreage in North Carolina and Kings Mountain would be taken into trust for the purpose of a casino. Unprecedented. That bill never made it out of committee on the Senate side. After that, the Department of Interior fast-tracked taking this land into trust. And I want to say this, land being taken to trust for tribe is an extremely arduous process. We have land that for the purpose of housing. When you go to take land into trust, the county has to be consulted because you're actually taking land that's going to take away from the county's tax base. You have to report to the DOI what the purpose is. We have land we've been trying to get in trust in Swain County for the purpose of housing for a very long time. It's gone nowhere. This taking land into trust for the purpose of gaming almost never happens. It's an extremely difficult process. This was fast-tracked. It came out of nowhere. And that land was actually taken into trust, I think, just last Friday. They had actually signed off on it at the DOI. This is a Western North Carolina issue. This is not just, for all the reasons that I began with, the economic impact on Western North Carolina. Another part of this economic impact study, which I'm happy to share with you all via email, talks about the fact that we've essentially helped to stabilize unemployment in the off-season. For all of the 6 westernmost counties, tourism, it tends to be the driving industry and hospitality. As we all know, in the off-season, unemployment tends to go up. I'd like to use Cherokee County as an example. They had double-digit employment in the off-season. They would get as high as 12 to 13%. Since opening our property there, to stabilize year-round at 5%. So the economic impact is undeniable. Why I'm here this evening, and the ask that the Eastern Band has of all of our neighbors in Western North Carolina, is we have asked for a resolution opposing the action of the Department of Interior for the following reasons. First, this is a state sovereignty issue. Well, more importantly, it's an economic impact issue for us, but it is a state sovereignty issue. There has been no consultation with the state of North Carolina. How all of this is rolled out is politically driven. There's a really good article that came out in Breitbart last Friday, which I will also share with you by email, that calls into question the politics and all of this has rolled out. Our ask on resolution is seeking the Attorney General Josh Stein to weigh in on the case. Secondly, asking Governor Cooper to weigh in on the case, which he has been silent on this issue, which as an elected official of a sovereign nation, if anything happens on tribal lands without consultation with the tribe, I'm going to be loud, vocal, and at forefront. To date, the governor has been silent on this issue. And finally, asking the state legislature to oppose. We previously had, when the bill that was introduced by Lindsey Graham came in, we had, I think it was 36 or 38 of the North Carolina senators weighed in and signed a letter opposing it. There is also an issue which you'll see in the Breitbart article that I'll share with you, where Speaker of the House Moore was once employed by Catawbas and Wallace Sheaves, so he's conflicted out, so he's recused himself. Nevertheless, politics being what they are, that's an issue. So we are asking for the legislature to oppose, the governor to oppose, for the Attorney General to weigh in on the legalities or the illegalities of it. So I'll entertain any questions that anyone might have at this time.
An interesting observation, if you go back to 2013, when that was first come before the legislative issues of that, when it all broke loose, Tom Tillis, who is now Senator Tom Tillis, was one of the most vocal people against the Catawba tribe.
Yes.
Now, of course, that has changed. He and Senator Burr both said let it move forward. They could have stopped it then, but in 2013, I just happened to have the letter and all the signatures of the legislators from 2013 that across the board, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, they knew that this could be devastating to not only to the west, but especially to the west. And so we would, Tommy, do you have any numbers specific to the casino from Macon County?
The employment numbers are significant. I don't have a current number on that.
I have it.
Have you got that?
Yes, sir.
The resolution is drafted. I think they're getting all one action on the resolution. Have you got it, Tom?
Honestly, I don't have.
Resist commercial. It's very significant.
Yeah, yes. What do you ask? Is it in the resolution?
Well, we're going to ask for the resolution. We're just asking the chief if we had the information on how many pre-COVID employees. I think it was, I'm working on, I think it's around 400.
More than that, I think.
4,600, something like that. It was surprising how many in Macon County.
Regardless.
And that's fine, Chief. We know it has a strong impact on our county and on our region. And we're gonna talk about this resolution and read it in. I'm gonna ask the county manager to read this into the record, and then we'll ask for a motion. We'd like for you to, I don't know if the language is pretty much the same as you saw on all resolutions. Our attorney has made it, for Macon County, so I'm going to ask the county manager to read the resolution. After reading of the resolution, if you have anything to add to that, we'd certainly like to hear from you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Manager.
The resolution is titled, Resolution of the Macon County Board of Commissioners opposing a Catawba Indian Nation casino in North Carolina. That whereas Macon County is a county located in western North Carolina, and whereas counties in western North Carolina have historically fallen well below national and state averages for wages, unemployment, education, and other socioeconomic metrics. And whereas the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians owns and operates Harris Cherokee Casino Resort in Cherokee, North Carolina, and Harris Cherokee Valley River in Murphy, North Carolina, collectively referred to as Cherokee Casino Resorts, which are located in Jackson and Cherokee counties in western North Carolina. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts had an estimated economic impact of $750 million in North Carolina in 2018. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts have an impact on the economy of western North Carolina in the form of employee compensation, local supplier purchases, cash distributions to fund tribal operations, as well as distributions to individual tribal members, each of which generates additional demands for goods and services provided by small business owners in western North Carolina. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts have enabled the tribe to make investments in western North Carolina, including an additional $330 million in financed capital investments by the year 2020. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts are directly responsible for 5% of the employment, approximately 3,069 employees in the far 6 western counties of North Carolina, and nearly 10% of employment for Jackson, Swain, and Cherokee counties. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts are indirectly responsible for an additional 5,411 jobs, and whereas directly and indirectly the Cherokee Casino Resorts have reduced the historically high unemployment rate in Jackson and Swain counties, which was 1.87 times the average through the state average through 1997. And whereas prior to the establishment of the Cherokee Casino Resorts, seasonal fluctuations in unemployment in western North Carolina sometimes peaked at 17% or more. But since the casino's resorts establishment, fluctuations currently range from 2% to 4%. And whereas the average salary for direct employees of Cherokee Casino Resorts is 72% greater than the average salary in the far 6 western counties of North Carolina, and whereas approximately $129 million in direct wage and salary income to Cherokee Casino Resorts employees and an estimated $276 million in indirect wage and salary income generated by the casino resorts entered into the local economy. And whereas Cherokee Casino Resorts funded tribal operations, generated close to $90 million in local spending, and created more than 2,600 jobs in the region. And whereas the Cherokee Preservation Foundation, using resources stemming directly from the Cherokee Casino Resorts, has awarded more than $93 million to further strengthen and diversify the regional economy. And whereas the state of North Carolina receives a revenue share from the Cherokee Casino Resorts in the amount of almost $11 million annually. And whereas other state and local taxes and benefits approach 80 to 90 million, including income tax, sales tax, decline of unemployment benefits, occupancy taxes, etc. And whereas the Cherokee Casino Resorts are responsible for bringing in approximately 5.2 million visitors to western North Carolina each year. And whereas almost 3/4 of gaming revenues generated by the Cherokee Casino Resorts are from out-of-state visitors. And whereas in 2018, the employees of Cherokee Casino Resorts donated approximately 123,000 hours to various nonprofit organizations for value added near $3 million. And whereas Senate Bill 790, a bill to authorize the Catawba Indian Nation from South Carolina to build a casino in North Carolina, was introduced in the United States Senate on March 19, 2019. And whereas Senate Bill 790 was introduced by South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham and co-sponsored by North Carolina Senators Richard Burr and Tom Tillis. And whereas Senate Bill 790 would permit the Catawba Indian Nation to operate an off-reservation casino with electronic games without entering into revenue sharing agreements with the state of North Carolina. And whereas revenues from a Catawba Indian Nation casino in North Carolina would be felt in South Carolina, where the Catawba Indian Nation is located. And whereas the establishment of a Catawba Indian Nation casino in North Carolina under Senate Bill 790 would result in fewer jobs offered by the Cherokee Casino and Resorts and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians tribal operations, thereby affecting the unemployment rate in Western North Carolina and the salaries, wages, and other investments recycled back into the local and regional economy. And whereas the establishment of a Catawba Indian Nation casino in North Carolina under Senate Bill 790 would result in lost investments and revenue in Western North Carolina, and most of the Catawba casino revenues going to South Carolina casino developers and the South Carolina Indian tribe. Now therefore be it resolved that Macon County opposes Senate Bill 790, a bill that would permit the Catawba Indian Nation in South Carolina to open a gaming facility in North Carolina and threaten the well-being of citizens and small business owners in Western North Carolina. And be it further resolved that Macon County shall make its opposition known to North Carolina Senators Richard Burr and Tom Tillis and members of the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, and request the North Carolina Senators to withdraw their support of Senate Bill 790.
Chief, you've heard the resolution as prepared. Do you have any comment?
I think that it would need to be amended to include that in one of the whereases, because the Senate bill essentially now isn't moving. It's a non-issue now because of the action of the DOI. And so our lawsuit seeks to overturn the action taken by the Department of Interior because they've now taken that land into trust. So the Senate bill is almost a non-issue at this point. Well, it is a non-issue at this point. Which was why I stated our ask is for the Attorney General and the Governor and the Legislature to weigh in on the case that we have filed against the Department of Interior, and specifically to ask for the Governor to oppose it, or at least to weigh in from a legal perspective. But I think that because of the action that has taken place very quickly by the DOI, really out of nowhere, the Senate bill is a non-issue now. So we need them to weigh in, specifically the Attorney General and the Governor to weigh in on this one.
So would you like to, it says, whereas Senate Bill 790, a bill to authorize Catawba Indian Nation of South Carolina to build a casino in North Carolina. We would like to add a whereas right at the end. We put it right at the end. Be it further resolved to make its opposition. I think we still should make our opposition known to our senators.
Absolutely.
And we will add the Governor of North Carolina, the Attorney General of North Carolina, and who else?
The state legislature.
The state legislature. Senator Berger, Senator Pro Tem, and Representative Moore, Speaker of the House. So have you got those additions?
Yes.
You want those individuals to speak to, you named the organization concerning Native Americans, and I didn't catch that full name.
No, specifically to weigh in on, we have filed suit, and that's something I didn't talk about, was we filed suit in federal court in Washington, D.C. So our motion for preliminary injunction was denied, mainly because they said that we were not facing imminent and irreparable harm, which we disagree with, of course, but that's what the judge decided on that. So we have our case filed in district court. We have an amended motion on that. We're looking for the Attorney General to weigh in on our case, the Governor to weigh in on our case, and the legislature. So if there's a letter like they did back in, what year was that?
13.
13.
Was there a panel though at the Senate or otherwise that you wanted them to weigh in with, or just to the public generally?
To the public and specifically, even if it came as an amicus brief from the Attorney General, that would be very powerful coming from the Attorney General.
I can make those adjustments to the.
So gentlemen, you've heard the resolution read into the record with the adjustments made as suggested by Chief Sneed. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution as needed?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to approve the resolution as amended, confirming Macon County's opposition to the Catawba Indian tribe in the construction of a casino which would devastate our area drastically. Any further discussion?
Make a couple comments. As you were sitting here speaking, I couldn't help, and I'll make it short, but remember going to Cherokee, down to these hills, and get my moccasins and tomahawk. You probably don't know what those are, right? But you know, you talk about the economic impact, and I certainly understand and appreciate that. It's substantial, but the history that lies there and the benefits that we have received from that, in my opinion, is substantial. And going back to the economic benefit, one of the institutions that's near and dear to our heart, Southwestern Community College, has been substantially impacted by the reservation. So, that's just a couple additional items in addition to what you mentioned and Commissioner Bills mentioned. But we have enjoyed a great relationship with you, and we want to continue that because there's just many opportunities that we'll have to work together, and as you referenced, what's good for the reservation is good for Western North Carolina, and when somebody comes to the table with that attitude, that's pretty hard to beat. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Any further comment? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will make those, we'll get you a copy, Chief, and get that to you,
Yes,
and you'll see that Attorney Jones will do an excellent job and get this in. So,
When do you need that?
Quickly as possible.
Sooner.
If you can give me your email address, I'll send you our amended complaint and all of the information. All right. Thank you for giving it all.
I think there are
Thank
some
you.
additional arguments if you want me to pass those along.
you pass whatever.
Outstanding.
You know the gist.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Chief, thank you for being here. Thank you. See you soon.
Appreciate it.
The Chief and I do sit on, for full disclosure, we sit together on the Cherokee Preservation Foundation, and you hear it listed in this resolution. It's amazing for the years I've been on it, before Richard Sneed was chief. I was on it for many years, and the history that Macon County and the Eastern Band have in connection is truly amazing. So we appreciate friendship, we appreciate what you're trying to do, and we hope much success to the tribe.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Okay. It's now a real pleasure to introduce, it says tentative here, we don't think it's going to be tentative too long. If you remember back a few months ago, we recognized Mike Wilkins, outgoing ranger for the Nanahaw district. And we have we'd like to introduce our new district ranger for the Nanahaw. His name is Troy Waskey. Troy Waskey. Troy, come forward. Troy has just come from West Virginia. He was been held prisoner up there, and he is now made down to us. And we had a good talk today with Troy, and welcome to Macon County. And this Board of County Commissioners, we've always treasured our relationship with the Forest Service. Boy, and we look forward to working with you on many matters, but you go ahead and speak to us anything you'd like.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for squeezing me in on the agenda. It's great to meet you all, and happy to be here before you tonight. I hope to be back again on several occasions. And really, today I just wanted to make a basic introduction so you can match a face and voice to the name. And I've been on the job for about a month now, and as the co-chair explained, I came from West Virginia. Before that, I was in New Mexico and Arizona. New Hampshire is where I started my Forest Service career, and back in my college days, I used to actually come down here and work with the Appalachian Trail Conference back then, or Conservancy now. And it's great to be back. It's great to be in Western North Carolina, and we're excited to get settled in. We just moved into our home yesterday, just up the road on Harrison Avenue. Walked down here tonight, and looking forward to getting plugged into the community. So I don't have a lot of prepared information for you all. Again, this was mostly just a meet and greet, but I did want to go over a little bit of forest land revision information just to give you all an update on that. I know you've been tracking that issue. Also, just give you an update on our COVID operations on the National Forest. So I'll start with that. As far as COVID goes, we are working hard to get our recreation sites reopened. We've closed those, of course, as did many other organizations when COVID first broke out. We've been working on getting contracts under procurement to get those facilities cleaned by third-party contractors. The forest supervisor in North Carolina decided that we would not have Forest Service employees cleaning bathrooms initially until we kind of had a better handle on what we were dealing with. But most of our sites are open now in a kind of tentative format with portable toilets and other limited services, but hopefully when these contracts are in full operation, most visitor experiences will be much like they've been in the past. And then maybe I'll just take questions at the end, so I'll just keep kind of rolling on. So forest plan revision, I know you guys have passed a resolution, correct? In the past, that was
And updated recently.
yes, and we did get your comments. I did check with our forest plan. We received those, I believe it was on June 9th, if I'm not mistaken. Comment period, which was extended, closed on June 22nd, or I'm sorry, June 29th. So now the next big task for that is to review all those comments. We tabulate them. I can't remember the number that we received, but it would probably blow your mind just in terms of how the sheer magnitude of comments that we received. So that'll take several months. We've brought in some detailers to help with that effort, and that'll go on through into early fall. At that point, the team that we have assembled to work on the plan will move into finalizing the plan, including response to comments. And so those will all be produced and put into the public record for review. And you all, if you have any questions along, when we get to that stage, feel free to reach out to me. You can use me as your local conduit for all questions related to the forest land. Once the plan is finalized, then it's released, and that starts a 5-month objection process. And so the first 2 months are opportunities for folks to submit objections, and then you have 3 months for a resolution process to take place. So we expect that to be late spring next year. So this is a little ways out. And then the final target date for getting the final plan in place would be the end of calendar year 21. So that's kind of the flight path, if you will, as far as forest land revision. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and as you alluded to, we do enjoy strong relations with our counties in the Forest Service. Everywhere I've worked, in all the different states I've worked in, at the county level, in my opinion, is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of Forest Service and local government interactions. And of course, we value all levels of government. But I do want to keep an open door with you all. And so, of course, if you have any concerns, any questions related to the Nantahala Ranger District or the Forest Service in general, please get hold of me. I'll share my contact information with co-chair. We exchanged some cards today. I'm still waiting on my cards to get in place, but I do want to keep that door wide open for you all. I welcome any input and any advice or any needs or requests that you all might have. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
Ranger Waukee, we're glad you're in Macon County. We're a bit, we think it's a pretty good place. It might be a touch, just don't have it. We think you couldn't have chosen a better place for you and your family. Troy was sharing me earlier today, he has a young teenager and he also has a boy on the way. So we look forward to him raising his family in Macon County. So any questions, please, you.
Superintendent Dr. Chris Ball, right behind you there.
Hey, good to meet you, sir.
Good to meet you.
And Mr. Goldsmith, who's right there, he's the member of the school board. And you'll get to know all these people. That's the sheriff standing out there.
Does that teenager play football?
No, I just played the flute.
He's a Virginia Tech man.
Oh.
Yes, I am. Just as my predecessor was.
Oh, yeah.
Troy, you're welcome in Macon County. You're welcome to appear before this board anytime you like, and anything from the first service. I think we share today, if you want to see a community come together during the terrible forest fires that we had, I think that showed the true Maconian spirit and how they treated 600-700 firefighters at a time. And we still have not forgotten that. We appreciate that very much. We were in a real, that was a bad time for our county and for a lot of reasons. And we still appreciate that very much. But y'all start through relationships, we know that.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roy.
Appreciate it.
Where's Kathy? Here's Kathy. We'd now like to welcome our Public Health Director, Kathy Gaha. Kathy, welcome. And we asked Kathy to appear tonight to give us an updated report on the health department. I think this is probably the first time you've got to appear in person since you came director, Kathy.
Second, yeah.
But
Appreciate you having me.
you know, we're glad you're here. I know you've been busy. So we'll talk, if you give us some reports on, of course, the COVID, that's what's on everybody's mind
Yeah.
and how that's affecting our county. So
Yeah.
go right ahead.
So I'm gonna go through some numbers. I know that we've been posting pretty regularly the daily information as well as on a weekly basis. We've been trying to put out some demographic information as well. So, and I'm gonna take this off. I can't speak and do this at the same time.
Kathy.
Hey! Okay. So just to look at some North Carolina numbers, we're about to break 90,000 confirmed cases in North Carolina. We are experiencing a lot of cases, however, we're not experiencing quite like some other states are experiencing, like Florida, Texas, so forth, that you're seeing on the news. But there is some concern. We're still watching it very carefully. In Macon County, as of today, we have 340 cases. We've got 116 that are currently active, with 223 recovered, and of course the one death.
Now let's make sure we understand what active is. Define that a little further. Is that
So-
people that's in quarantine, or are these people showing symptoms?
They're confirmed positive, and they are currently in isolation and have not been released from isolation. And that process is really on a case-by-case basis, considering that individual's symptoms, that their severity of their illness, and how many days they're without symptoms, without any kind of fever, without fever reducer. So there's a lot of things that our medical director looks at with each case before they actually release somebody to be in a recovered group.
Okay, thank you.
And here's some of that demographic information. that we've been trying to share with the community. We've been breaking it down with race, ethnicity, the gender, and age. And one thing I want to point out, considering the fact that today we've got information about the schools opening and using Plan B, and we will be working with Chris to look at what that plan is going to look like in Macon County, and helping as much as we can and figuring this out with him, because it's quite a complicated thing. But if you'll look at the age 0 to 17 demographic for Macon County, 25% of our cases are below the age 17. And that's something somewhat unusual. We're high in Macon County for our cases to be that young age.
Do we have hospitalizations on here?
We don't report hospitalization information. That's our hospital system. But they have been a little bit better about giving me some more routine information. And as of yesterday, we had one person that's a Macon County resident that's in ICU, and 3 individuals that's in the hospital, not necessarily in ICU, but they're considered persons under investigation.
Your mission today reported that the ICU they were going to have to change something, that the COVID part was full and Part A for some things. So,
Yeah.
and we know that if things do turn really bad. What surprised me looking at this though is 25 to 49 range too. That's
Yeah.
statewide,
Latinos,
The Latinx.
76%.
that's the age group of Latinos.
That's you see that, and even with North Carolina, that age group's got a higher positive rate.
Can you get a handle on the 17-year-old or not?
Can I get a handle?
I mean, why? I mean, they're just out.
Well, with contact tracing, what we're doing with these families, we're encouraging them to bring their children in and get the children tested. And we've been willing to do nasal swabs with the children if they're, or the oral swabs instead of the nasal swabs with the children if they're scared. They don't want to do that nasal swab. And so they're much more receptive to getting the children tested. Now, of course, the children aren't showing the symptoms necessarily like the older folks would. So, you know, there may be.
Miss Steve, I think.
You know, there may be more children that are out there, but because we've identified that they're a contact of individuals that have tested positive, we brought them in and had them tested. And we're doing a lot more contact tracing. I can say that other than from other health departments, we're doing quite a bit of contact tracing.
How are we on tests themselves?
We have tests.
Anybody that wants a test, get a test?
If anybody wants to be tested, they need to call our hotline, 349-2517, and we'll talk to them about it. We're really not refusing any people. We are prioritizing people. If someone is symptomatic and they are a known contact of a known exposure of a positive, we want to get those people in as soon as possible. So someone that just is kind of just curious, we're not necessarily prioritizing them to the top. But we've had to do that just to get people in on a timely basis.
Okay, can I ask one question? Go back to that one.
Yeah.
On your 0 to 17 of age, 25%, is there a group there or a number there that, is it K3 or is it?
We don't have it broken down to that age group. I mean, broke that age group down any further. It's just that category right now.
Well, let's ask you another way. What's the youngest one you saw? What is the age of the youngest patient?
I don't know the age of them, but I know under 5 we've had an infant that's been positive. I just don't know how.
Pre-kindergarten under 5?
Yeah. had some young children.
Okay.
And here that shows you the comparison between the counties. Of course, Buncombe County and Henderson County are way on up there with some positive cases. And Jackson County is getting close to us as well, so their cases are coming up there too.
We're leading the West by a big margin.
In testing too.
I'll get to that. You'll see that. This is just another layout of the different numbers for the different counties. I wanted to show you this graph. It's kind of hard to see, but that last long line is where we've implemented wearing masks. And you can see after phase 2, the red line, for all the counties, they've started going up. Not just Macon County, but all the counties they started. So here's our testing for our county. We've hit a mark of 3,500 tests just at the health department. That is a lot of tests for a small health department our size. We've been testing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the last several weeks, just to give our staff a little bit of downtime, because it's staff in Tyvek suits, 80, 90 degree weather. It's really hard to do that all day long. You can see where the hospitals have been doing some testing and some local providers have been doing some testing. So we're about 4,500 tests that we've done for the entire county. And then this is just our testing over time. You can see where we had the community tests, and but we've been pretty steady for a while now.
And you're getting the result back in how long?
Well, that's slowed down. That's been a big barrier for us over the last couple of weeks, because it's been anywhere from 5 to 7 days before we see results on some people. And that's a problem, because they're halfway through their, or more than halfway through their, either.
Are we still sending tests to 2 places? Is the state still doing tests?
We've been just doing a LabCorp test with LabCorp at this point. They were the most efficient process that we had, and to get the test back for quicker. And the state had a little bit more requirements before we were allowed to send them a test, so we just started using LabCorp.
So now it's 5 to 7 days a week to get the results back.
And that's because their testing is busting out in these other states. So I know.
LabCorp is the biggest.
I was on the state call today, and one of the conversations, one of the questions that kept coming up from other counties is like, what's up with delay? We need quicker turnaround. And so I know the state made a claim that they were going to be talking to LabCorp this evening about trying to get that turned around for North Carolina.
You got people waiting 15 hours in a car to get a test.
Yeah, and
a lot of states. So.
And we, that's why we make appointments. We try to limit how long somebody's actually waiting in line. We don't want everybody just showing up, and just waiting for hours on end. So we're going through the process of setting up appointments, so many every 15 minutes, so that people don't have that wait.
Question.
Yeah.
Is it still true that the 11 and under doesn't have to wear a mask?
It is in the public.
Not in school?
In school, they just, I think they just
said every
changed that.
staff, kid, every student, teacher, all.
I think the superintendent's going to speak to that. I think you'll speak to what the governor said today.
Yeah. And this is, you can see we've got, for Macon County, we've got a higher percentage of the people that were testing are actually testing positive, and that's because of the level of contact tracing that we're doing. We're intentionally getting people we know we're suspicious of that they're exposed, they're positive, getting them in there, getting them tested.
What do you need in this board, Kathy, to help you through this thing? I mean, how are you going to help?
It is, I'm stressing over the help that right now we're one deep in every role that we have with testing. If one person's out, we're feeling it. And we've got 5 school nurses that are in the process right now that when school starts back in 4 weeks, they have a totally different set of responsibilities they're going to have to tend to. And Chris will, yeah, well, 5 initially, and then
When does she leave? High school?
I'm not sure. But we're going to be down those 5 bodies in the process. 5 is not going to be enough for him. And so, you know, that's where I'm stressing. How are we going to keep up the testing and do the testing, as well as safely get these children back to school where everybody wants them to be, and be able to quickly respond to when a child does test positive and how to handle that in the school, or if God forbid a teacher tests positive and we're dealing with that, and they need that support.
Of course, I think
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
so. Do you have extra help that can be trained now that they could do 2 jobs? We don't know how long this is going to continue. Do you have tell us what you need.
I need bodies. I need to be able to hire nurses. That's what I need.
We've never been able to do that.
Oh.
We discussed among our policy group some options internally between the emergency management director, the sheriff, Kathy, and myself. We have COVID relief funding. We've recently heard we're going to get a second round of that funding. And that funding can be used to contract with the staffing agency and nurses and get the bodies they'll need. So we have the funding to do it, and it's a matter of contacting the staffing agencies. And I know that the state of North Carolina could potentially provide us some help with that. We discussed all of it. So we do have options.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, we're very fortunate when it came to interpreters. We did find a state organization that could help us, and send, right now we have 4 interpreters from the state helping us with the process of testing and isolation orders and so forth.
Good.
So that's been a blessing. It's when this transition happens, that's when where my concern comes in, and looking at everything that's going to have to get done.
Any questions, Kathy?
Thank you.
Thank you for your do, Kathy, but you need to keep us posted through the county manager or whatever. I mean, we got to take care of our folks. So, and you're it.
Yep.
Mr. Manager, based on what you're saying, you feel comfortable that we have a plan in place to address those shortcomings in staffing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, just to give you another, just to go off of what Commissioner Gillespie, when Superintendent Baldwin's going to tell you here in a minute about his school nurse, and that shortage also. So it's not only in our health department. And the school board's got some tough decisions, as Kathy's have to make these as the superintendent is too. So, but Kathy, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for what you do, and every day we're going to bring in Warren. Kay, warm welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us some good news. Got any good news?
Not today. I actually don't have a lot to add to what Kathy said. We're still under the governor's executive order. We're not planning on there's no plans or thoughts to do anything any more stringent in Macon County above and beyond what the executive orders are. A couple projects that we've been working on, the face masks, we've through a partner agency that we've worked with trying to distribute some of those to local churches so they can get those up for their congregations. That agency actually worked with the school system and the MPP to get some of those in their hands. And another population that touched on the numbers that y'all mentioned up here, we've been working with Cooperative Extension to get those in the hands of some of our farm workers. And you wouldn't think that number of workers is significant in Macon County, but it's a higher number than you realize when you start looking at those folks. So that's a pretty significant population that we've been trying to address. Derek mentioned the policy group that met, and one of the things we wanted to talk about was where are we going to be in 6 months? And 6 months in government time is not very long by the time we go through a process. We can't really do anything in 6 months. So you wouldn't think that's too lofty of a goal. But when we sat down, we had some conversations, and we really didn't have a whole lot of conclusions because every day something is changing somewhere. We talked about the economy, we talked about the sales tax revenue coming in, the revenues, where they're going to be, where they're at now, where we think they're going to be. That's still a shot in the dark. We talked about staffing. You've already heard staffing concerns tonight. We've talked about the shortage of employees that you have that either now want to go into health or healthcare or public safety, government in general. And even if we had the money to pay some of those folks, sometimes it's hard to find them. But retention and keeping those staff members is a big priority for us. We've looked at some of those options that you talked about. We've cross-trained some of our folks that backfill for Kathy when their nurses are out. But the problem is when you have a limited work pool, those folks are going to be pulled from something else. So you've got something that you have to give up in order to make that cross-training work. So we attempted to do that the best we can, but we have to understand at some point there's still limitations with that and to keep those employees there. Some of the other things we talked about broadband, which is always a topic because of the distance learning that we anticipated having to do again, which now we are going to have to do some of that again. And just the state of, I don't want to say unrest, but the general attitude in the general public at the moment is not necessarily as stable as we would like for it to be. So there's always things there that we're trying to look at. And I don't know, we had a lot of solutions out of that meeting, but we addressed some of the problems we know we're going to have, so we can hopefully deal with that as we come on into the fall season. And then there's a whole different group of problems that we have to look at. One of the things, I was on a phone call with the state today. We typically have some issues September, October. That's usually hurricane season that affects North Carolina. We typically have a good winter storm occasionally. We have instances where we need to shelter folks. At the moment, we have nobody in our non-congregate sheltering for COVID-related issues, which is a good number for us to have. However, if we have to stand up a normal shelter, what folks consider a Red Cross type shelter, because of bad weather, hurricane, snowstorm, some of those other issues, you can't really group those people together at the moment. So there has to be other solutions to our normal problems that we have. We've created problems for our normal problems. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to look at as far as the big picture, and all I can tell you at the moment is we're looking at those, trying to get the best solution we can get. And if we have any issues come up, we'll bring them to y'all for help.
Last time you were here, Warren, you correct me if I'm wrong, you said the calls had been lower than normal. What have you seen since we last talked?
Those numbers have increased. I don't have the exact numbers, but those numbers have increased to at least a very similar number to the amount of calls we were receiving this time last year. We tend to have other issues. The calls that normally we would see weekends on the night, we tend to have those during the week. We've had substance abuse calls. We've had more mental health issue calls that seem to be there, and I can't quote the exact numbers, but it does seem like that's spread over a 24-hour period now and not necessarily related to a certain time period of the week, but those numbers are back up.
Tell us about your folks that's on the ounces that go every day. And, have they been tested, number one?
If they need to be tested, they can be tested. If they've been exposed, then they certainly are tested and contact traced. The good thing about us, if there is a good thing with that profession, typically we're prepared for that when we go in. So my folks come to work knowing that they're possibly going to be exposed to something that's contagious. So they're pretty well prepared for that when they walk through the door. But the resources are there to do what we need to do. I'll give you an example. We had 5 full-time openings as of 1st of July. We've managed to fill 4 of those, hopefully, at the moment. Fortunately, 3 of those were retirements, and you don't see a lot of folks that make 30 years in our profession that retire. So that's Kenny Cole, Pam Shook, and Connie Baird all retired out with their time in the system, which is good, but we lose a lot of experience when those folks go away. And the labor pool that you have to pull those competent, qualified people from is affecting. It's the same thing here that affect nurses, that affect your other, whether it's trades or other things out there. There's not a huge pool of folks to pull from sometimes. So that's one of my big concerns, is we're gonna have some labor shortages over the next couple of years.
I was thinking, and me and the manager was talking about it, if one of your crews on ambulance, if they both should test positive, that's 2 weeks right there. They're, whatever how many days it takes, to probably 2 weeks are gone.
We have actually, one of the things we've done is we've split up steel to 3 crews in Franklin. We don't have all 3 of them in the same base. We've still got one of them working out of the armory, which is not the most pleasant experience to be out there, but that limits us a little bit as far as having one whole group that's exposed to something. But Todd Dostner and I have had this conversation. If it comes down to it, we'll go to 24-48, we'll go to 24-24 if we have to, in order to put those resources. And the same thing we've talked about telecommunicators. They still have to answer the phone no matter what. And we're trying to consider some options that we need to put one at our backup site and one at our main site, and there's even options to remotely do some of the things that they do. With some applications, they could be here or they could be at home doing the same thing. So we've looked at some options there in order to maintain that workforce if it became a necessity. I may have to answer 911, which that might be a project.
You can do it. Any questions for one?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
On your cross-training, do you recruit the paramedics, or
We
talk
do.
with them, help them into the cross-training? Is a cross-training a schooling, or is it a PT, or what is it?
On the job training, we started off using our community paramedics because they were a little bit more accustomed to the type of health care that's needed for what she does. They understand a little bit more of the other processes that somebody that just does 911 calls might not understand. But we actually branched out. We've had some medics that have actually volunteered and said, no, I'd really like to do that. Let's try that. We don't go through and just say, okay, today's your day. So anybody that we've had has been volunteers. They actually go do time with them. They'll actually go do a clinical day with them. They'll go through the whole process with them, and then they're always there. So far, they've always been there with a nurse in her facility. There's always been somebody there with them.
Any more questions? More we appreciate your dedication, we appreciate your staff. Thank you. Sheriff Rob Holland is going to give us a report on his activities and how it relates not only to COVID, but activities in general. Sheriff, thank you for being here.
Good evening. I don't have a whole lot to add. We're continuing to do the things that we did all the way back in March. Still bringing prisoners into the facility through the Sally Port, but before they enter the Sally Port, they're going through our command post where we're taking temperature, asking questions, and evaluating them there. And then if they have any symptoms, any signs, then they're quarantined within the facility. They're tested, and praise the Lord, as of today, we've had nobody in our facility that's tested positive, so we're relieved with that. We routinely get complaints and concerns and stuff. We follow those up. We routinely work with her at the health department, and sometimes we go out to people's residence. just 2 weeks ago, I had to go to a residence to advise them that they had COVID and they needed to contact the health department. And so we're answering calls such as that, along with all the other many calls that we are responding to. It's business as usual. Everything else, our calls are up. Our court cases are up. We're still having courts. I know that a lot of people think we don't have courts because of the ruling, but we still have certain things that have to be done within the court system. People still have rights to have so many days to be able to go before a judge. Those things are still happening. But we're staying incredibly busy.
Are you doing any of that with the telephone, like the mental health tele? Are you,
Yeah.
Do you have to come, are you doing it with?
Yeah, we're doing that when we can. We're still also, I left out the fact that we're still doing visitation. That's actually working out fabulous. Of course, that's something we've tried to get in the past, and our building just doesn't make it a proper location for us to do. That's why we're having to utilize the Carpenter building. What's going to happen when Carpenter building opens up, we're going to have the problem with finding another location. We're still using our facility a little bit. Depends on what's going on. If it's raining or something, you'll have some people that are happy with just sitting outside at the bench with an iPad and having their visitation. Sometimes we're bringing them inside and letting them sit back in that back. I don't know if some of you may not have been in there, but over the back corner where they do the fingerprint or gun permits and stuff, people can sit there and worry about this winter.
Got the armory, remember that.
I worry about this winter when it gets cold, but the tents worked great for the little while, but that just wasn't going to work out. It was also very expensive, but in our last meeting we discovered that we are going to be able to get our, I guess you'd call it a shed, where we had tents over our command trailer where the inmate never gets out of the vehicle. The officer comes out into the weather, into the sun or whatever, and they take their temperature and they do all the things they do, and they never get, the inmate never gets out of the vehicle. And so we're able to use those funds that they talked about earlier to get that shed. Of course, it's 6 weeks out before it'll be there. Once we pay for it, it takes 6 to 7 weeks to get that, start building it, but they'll have it built in a day or two.
And your calls are up?
Yes,
Steady?
yes, sir, steady, busy. I think Warren said it right earlier. It used to be, you could pretty well determine, come 12, 1 o'clock, things slow down. But now, it's all hours of the night. It used to be that from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning wouldn't be very many calls. But still, we've got calls that are early in the morning, late at night, and so the guys are staying really busy.
And how is the staff in general?
I'm glad you answered. I'm glad you asked that. I mean, I'd love to answer. In fact, I'll be quite honest with you. It's been laying really heavy on my heart, and I wanted to say some things tonight. And so I was kind of relieved when you started asking everybody else the same questions. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to say things that every other department head can say as well. But I'm not here to represent those departments. I'm here to represent the Sheriff's Office and law enforcement. And so I don't have anything prepared. I do have a little chart that I'll show you here in a second, and I'll explain why I have that. But almost 20 years ago, I decided to run sheriff. And when I ran, my goal was to try to get more money for the officers, to try to get our agency within the 21st century. And when I say that, I don't mean anything disrespectful to our commissioners, our managers, and especially not my sheriff from the past. But things had to change. And, when I took office, we made a lot of changes. We did things that are taken for granted today. For example, if we didn't have officers in Highlands, they would pitch a fit. But it used to be we didn't ever have officers in Highlands. You just went to Highlands when you got called. The very first minute that I became sheriff, we provided since that day 24/7 an officer in Highlands. And you all don't pay any additional funds to allow that to happen. We made that within our budget, within our setting up the department. Equipment, we were so outdated on equipment. We didn't have the equipment we needed. And so for several years, after we started keeping statistics and coming to the commissioners and showing the facts of what we're doing, we were able to show in black and white, because you all don't come and ride with us. You don't know, you're at home with families like most people should be. And so we started getting things. We started getting better equipment. We started getting better cars. We started getting our uniforms and adequate uniforms. You know, I still use my very first set of handcuffs that I ever had with the agency. I bought them at Walmart. It was common practice for us back then to buy our own equipment, because if you didn't buy it yourself, you weren't going to get it. Those days are gone, and I'm thankful for that. It's because of people like you that have served in this position. And so through the years, that's gone real well. But here in the last few years, it's discouraging to me. Now, I'm supposed to be the leader of my agency and keep my people boosted, and I try to do that. But I'm at the point in my career that I'm discouraged now. And I'll give you an example. There's not a single one of you in here that wears the same 3 pants and the same 3 shirts every week of work. And I have officers that, in order to get a complete uniform, because they are expensive, they can only go get 3 pants and 3 shirts at times. And that's going to last them. And that's uncalled for. The other concern that I have is, we talked about pay, and I know every single department can talk about pay. And we've beat that into the ground. Ever since you've been on the board, and long before you, we beat that like a dead horse. And it's frustrating. And, you know, I'm disappointed that Jim Tate's not here. Because I've thought about this a whole lot for the last few days especially, and I kept seeing Jimmy Tate, and he's not here tonight. But Jimmy Tate directed the county manager last year, at you all's request too, for him to look at the pay of not only my department, I'm only speaking for my department, but for all the departments, to go and look. I talked to my fellow sheriffs and my fellow chiefs. I know what they're doing in their agencies. And I've talked, and we've worked with other department heads, and almost a year there, wouldn't you say, at least, that we've worked on the salaries. And we know where there's fault. We know where there's a problem. And it needs to get addressed. It needs to be fixed. The sheriff can't do it. The purse string stops at you all. You all are the ones that do that. And so, you know, I'm in a position right now, for the first time probably in the history of this county, I have 11 deputies, 11 applicants for deputy sheriffs. And trust me, not everybody that walks in and applies for a deputy sheriff's position can be a deputy. We call a lot of them out because they can't even complete an application at times. If you can't complete an application, I don't even give you the time of day. You don't even get an interview because paperwork is constant with us. And so today I could hire 11 deputy sheriffs in our department. And these aren't people that, because I'm some tyrant or because I'm a mean boss or whatever, these are people who have left to go find other employment. I mean, we're a training agency for a lot of it. We've had them go to other departments. Recently, we've had them go into the construction business, making more money than what they're making here. Right now, it's a difficult time to be in law enforcement. There's a lot of criticism out there. There's a lot of things that are being said and done to law enforcement, as every one of you know. Just last month, you know, my officers were put into a position of standing and protecting individuals who asked us to be there. They asked us to come protect them and stood there and said all cops are bastards And our mayor and a teacher gets up and supports that group and is lifting them up. It's good that they were standing up. That's what our country's about. That's great. But I had tons of officers out there, 4 times the amount of the Franklin Police Department out there, keeping those people straight, calling out people bastards. And public officials and other professionals in my county stood there and had the opportunity to speak. Every one of you called me while we were in a meeting to thank my guys for being out there. Paul Higdon, Carl, you actually came out there and thanked our people for being there. Dare did. Ronnie called every one of you. But I had public officials that didn't even give them the time of day and thank them while we stood from here to that wall with fists raised at us, calling us bastards. It's hard for me to be the encourager. I've got wives that are calling. I'm an open book with my staff. My staff is an open door. They can call me. Their wives call me. When their husbands don't have the courage to come and complain to me, trust me, their wives will. And they're sick of it. Why should they be there making $15 an hour to have a gun pointed at them, or being called a bastard, or wanting to defund the police, and all the things that are done? It's a calling. You've got to be tough to be in this profession now. And it's a calling. And it may be a calling for that officer, but typically it's not a calling for that spouse or those families or those children who are being threatened. I've had officers' wives threatened in bylaws and had defendants follow the wives out and harass them. I've had death threats for $15, $16 an hour. And, you know, I'm discouraged. I want you all to know I'm discouraged. You all can fix it. I'm asking you to fix it. I'm disappointed that Jimmy Tate's not here. I'm glad he got to go wherever he's gone to. He's here at every meeting. But I'd like to ask you to fix it. You guys can fix this. We've talked about it long enough. I'm not being critical of you guys, but it's time that we fix it. My guys deserve it. I've got 11 people, and I've got to sell those positions to people when they come in. And we've got a couple applicants. And for those 11 positions, we've got a couple. We literally have 2. And I'm asking you to fix it. I'm sincere. We've talked about it. I've said this before. My liaison and me have talked about it a bazillion times, and he supports us. He knows what we do all the time. I know other departments are hurting, but no disrespect to none of them. None of them put a bulletproof vest on. None of them strap a gun on their sides. And none of them are expected to lay their life down for their fellow man, like my officers are. And, you know, God forbid, you know, I just had an officer killed last month. And, you know, he worked hard. And, you know, he never made it to retirement, but he worked hard. And he was miserable the last 6 months because he'd been injured. He had a stolen vehicle case, and the guy jumped from the vehicle and took off running in the middle of the night. And he didn't see a ditch, and he fell in that ditch. And for 6 months, he's had surgeries and was about to have another surgery, and he was miserable because he wanted to be out at $15 or $16 an hour serving our community because he had a passion for it. It was a calling. And detention, I've got a couple of detention officers positions. But you think about it for a second. Now, I know all these people are wishing I'd hurry up so they could all go home tonight. But you think about it. We've got SROs. We don't want rookie officers straight out of rookie school working our schools. No disrespect to them. We want experienced officers working with our kids. That's 5 years. You gotta have 5 years of experience. I've got officers that are making $34,000 and $35,000 working in the school with 5 years or more experience. And beginning pay is only $32,600. one officer figured out that he's now a supervisor, just got promoted to sergeant, just like a couple of others, and that's because my sergeants have left. They've heard me talk for years now that we're working on a pay study, we're working on increasing the pay. We really thought it was going to happen this year. We all convinced it was going to happen. I know you all were probably convinced that there was a good possibility of that happening. We didn't know COVID-19. And I'll be honest with you, this year is probably the best excuse you've ever had. But every year, there's another excuse. Next year, there'll be another excuse. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's just every year. I've been the sheriff almost 20 years, and another year and a half, it'll be 20 years. I've got 2 new chiefs, and I've asked for a pay study, I've asked for pay stubs, I've asked for incentives, and to bring our pay up. And I feel inept, because both of those chiefs, I was the first one to ask for it within our department, because I was a sheriff before they were ever chiefs. Both of them have accomplished that task within their agency, and I can't get it done. And I've had conversations with Derek about that, Mr. County Manager, about that, and it bothers me. And these officers give their all. We answer more than twice the number of emergency calls than the Franklin Police and Highlands Police combined. We've got 525 square miles. I'll put my guys up against anybody, and they deserve better. And I'm asking you, again, please fix us.
Well, Sheriff, you know that, of course, you know, we fought for a long time to get where we are now.
Absolutely.
We've come a long way since I came on the board.
Absolutely.
And, but we do have a long way to go, and you're exactly right when you say all the departments are so important to this county, but as much as they want to call our department, your department name, or any police officer names, when it comes time to dial that 911 number, they need help for whatever reason. They seem to forget all that stuff. And so the only thing that, as a board, I can speak for myself that, you know, this was a very tough budget on this board for all the employees, not just the sheriff's department, but for all employees. And that's when we worry about these staffing issues, because you're exactly right. Most of our deputies can go out and find another job tomorrow, making more money. That's just a fact.
Guaranteed.
And so the only thing we can do now, I think, with where we're at with our budget, unless the county manager knows some secret, we passed the budget just a month ago. So, but we have got, in 6 months, we're going to have a complete budget review. It may be worse, it may be better. We're just like everything else, probably, we don't know.
Right.
But I can tell you this as your liaison, and I've never tried to mislead you, that the deputy pay comparison will be done.
Well, it's done.
Well, it's not really done. Because it's a moving scale now. This has changed everything. It's a moving scale. You talk to some of these other counties, and they've seen where they've got to go back and backfill. Because they're losing people too. All departments are losing people, not just Macon County.
Right.
It's everything, not only the West, but it's other counties. But we need to keep the good folks we got, and that are dedicated to the Maconians and the people of this community. So, I'm sure the board might have some questions or comments, but I think that the least that we can do is I can give you my word that as your liaison, that this will be brought up at a time when we can really do something about it. With our budget just being passed, I don't think we can backtrack. And because we were looking at raising taxes, and that was not going to happen in this environment. You know that.
I would like to see, I would like to have us be able to have the conversation with our manager, with your blessing, your direction, to be able to, within our current budget, see what we can do. And Did somebody say something? I heard something.
How many vacancies? You said you had 11 applicants.
No, I have 2 applicants. I have 11 deputies.
Initially, though, you said you had 11 applicants.
Correct.
They wouldn't make it because it didn't cut mustard.
No.
So you have 11 vacancies.
Did I say applicants?
You said you had 11 applicants.
No, I have 11 vacancies and I had 2 applicants.
Okay, yeah. Now, initially,
And-
you said 11 applicants, not vacancies.
All right, let me correct that then.
Okay.
I have 11 vacancies within my department, which I guarantee that's never happened in the history of our county. It's never happened in my 28 years with the department. Usually you have part-time people that are ready to go into that position, and it fills that quick. But we don't even have part-time. We have a couple of part-time, but they are retired law enforcement from us, and so they stay on part-time. But we have 11 vacancies. And we have 2 applicants that are going through background checks right now, which they're good candidates. They come from other places that have it much worse than we do. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to cause any problems. But one of them was born and raised here, and the other one is just likes this area better than where they are. And they're both very good applicants.
Well, what's the status on the law enforcement training program, the cadet program?
Still, we have some officers in detention, BLED right now. These are officers that worked in our detention facility, have been good employees. We've invested in them within the facility, and so we've decided to allow them to go on. Their goal was to be a deputy sheriff and to be a law enforcement officer. So because they did the things that we asked them to do and stayed in jail for the time that we asked them to stay, we've been able to invest in them and bring them, hopefully if they pass, bring them up, and then we'll have that opportunity. We still have 2 positions in courthouse security that you all gave us last year. We still haven't filled those. Actually, we're going to make a change in courthouse security. Another one that's in courthouse security is about to get the opportunity to go to the road. The blessing for us right now has been the fact that school hasn't been in session. And so we've been able to utilize those school resource officers. I just had a school resource officer resign. I have no applicants for school resource officers. And so you'll have one school, I don't want to name the school, you'll have one school that will start out without an SRO. But my concern is those vacancies that we have on the patrol are going to cause even more problems when those SROs come off of the patrol and go back into their schools. And I'm telling you, I'm going to really have to look at my priorities there. Because
So what are you asking, Sheriff? You're asking that you sit down with the county manager, look at your budget, and look at what the county budget is for your department, and come up with a recommendation? Is that what you're asking?
absolutely, whatever, I'm willing to.
If there's anything they can do, there might be nothing, I don't
Yeah.
know. But you would take both of your departments, it would take the county manager, he's in charge of all the departments.
Right.
And he'll take, you look at your department, and we can do that. We can certainly do that to see what's available. And you can look at your department. There might be some places that instead of 11, you may have to settle for 9 or 8.
The thing-
That's $100,000 apiece by the time you figure in everything.
Right.
You say that they only make 32
We
a
cannot,
year.
let me make sure, I don't know if I understand you right. We cannot sacrifice any positions. Those positions that are vacant right now, we are not willing to sacrifice. We have to fill those positions.
That $32,000 position is going to cost the county a little over 60.
Correct.
So what they're forgetting is the insurance. They have some of the best.
They're not
insurance.
forgetting, Ronnie, they're not forgetting.
I'm not saying forgetting, but that's money that I have to pay out of my pocket.
Right.
You know, that we pay out of our pocket. So that's true, that's real money. We've had this discussion, and we're certainly willing to look at it because we gotta have dependable people out there taking care of our folks, and that's our responsibility as a board. So,
It's just,
Mr. Manager, what have you got to add to that?
I would echo what you said. You know, we just went through this budget process, and in the absence of the, you know, we've pretty much taken our supplies, travel, fuel. We have no capital in the budget. It's a pretty bare bones budget. And, I'll do whatever the board directs me to do with respect to looking at the budget. But like you said, this was a tough budget, extremely hard budget, put a lot of work into it. And as I had told this board during the budget message, I mentioned we had looked up until February in the COVID crisis. We had looked, I had analyzed, we have comparisons, a very in-depth exercise that we went through to compare not just this department, but all departments across the board with regional competitors. Information we'd received, and there are some areas within not just the sheriff's department, but other departments as well, that are below what we're seeing compensation-wise with our peers regionally. And so we were going to make an effort prior to COVID-19 to try to correct that and to try to get that put into place. But COVID-19 happened, and all of a sudden we have a revenue swing of $2 million. And when I say that, I'm saying $2 million from revenue we were originally anticipating to get unto the revenues we actually received. The budget was $1 million less than it was last year, but that's not the same thing as the revenue swing. Leaving the tax rate the same, we were looking at gaining an additional $2 million in operating revenue, some of which could have went to correcting these issues that we have noticed in the pay scale. And so once COVID-19 happened, we had to totally redirect that prioritization. And like I said during the budget presentation, we entered into a holding pattern. And so that's where we are today. That's the budget we have. We passed the budget we did. We delayed all of our capital expenditures. We've had to reduce funding to the school system, all because we're in a holding pattern. And as Warren alluded to, our policy groups had discussions on what 6 months from now is going to look like. And I can't sit here and tell you, the sheriff can't tell you, Warren can't tell you, the health director can't tell you. Nobody knows what 6 months from now is going to look like. We could get in a situation in January where, if this thing continues on, revenues are less than we originally anticipated. So at that point, we're having to come back in January and not just talk about what capital we're going to need to put into the budget, things like ambulances, things like patrol cars that are needed to replace outdated fleet vehicles to keep providing these emergency services that so many people depend on. We could be having a discussion in January, just like we are, hey, are we going to use a little of our fund balance to purchase these ambulances we need, or the sheriff's vehicle we need? Or are we not even, are we going to be in January saying, well, we've got to look at our operation. We've got to reprioritize the services we provide. We've got to see what services we provide that impact most people. I mean, when you look at the budget, service, the dental clinic, we had to close the dental clinic. We lost a community health grant of $150,000 that the health department wanted to pick up, that we couldn't do that. And those are all, that prioritization you saw in the operating budget, as well as what I'm talking about in the capital budget. But we have to be prepared to be in a position in January where if revenues are less than expected, that we're going to be having discussions about prioritizing the operations of this organization. And with so much uncertainty on the horizon, I would hate to get us in a position where we have operating costs that we have increased that have further outpaced the already deficit that we're going to have that we've projected in revenues.
Well, Sheriff, the only thing, we can hear your frustration, and it's been frustrating for this board. I mean, this life budget, I've been through here several of them, and we thank, our administration and Lord several times for what they, to get this budget, to maintain what we got and not go backwards. And we don't want to see your department go backwards. Sure. Of all departments. So we understand frustrations. The only thing we would ask your personnel is, it sounds hollow in a way, but we do appreciate them. We appreciate these people at the health department.
We know that.
Ride that ambulance. And they, with the situation that I think we find ourselves in budget-wise, it's not comfortable for any of us. And certainly not comfortable for those people out there putting on that vest. They are in a different line. So, any other comments?
Just one thing, when we were talking about the landfill attendant salaries, Chris provided me, and I never get involved in an employee, that's the county manager. My purpose is not to meddle in things, but Chris provided me, and I guess the full board, with a list of all employees, no names, redacted, I think is the correct term now, of positions, salaries, just for personal information. I have no idea what your employees are paid.
Yeah, I put that in our budget book every year.
Do you?
And the other thing too is here's another hard thing. If I've got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and I come to work for the Macon County Sheriff's Office, or I have my GED, I get paid the same. I've got officers that work for me that while they work for me, they went to school on their own and got their 2-year degree, got nothing for it. Same officer went on to get their 4-year degrees. And at the conclusion of that, the only thing that happened was they got their degree and the county got a better employee, I think, because they got more education toward the field that they work in, and they get nothing for that. No incentive for that. And I've had multiple officers that have done that. I've had some of them that have done that and have gone on to be, in other positions elsewhere in other agencies, because in other agencies they get that. And that's exactly what Highlands and Franklin have done now. And so, that's the quandary that I'm in, is because those officers are seeing that's happened in our own county. There should never be a day that you come and apply at the Franklin Police and the Macon County Sheriff's Office, and you get the job both of our places, and because you get paid more, you end up going to the Franklin Police. We should not lose people to go to the Franklin Police Department. Nothing against them, but they should not go there to make more money, and that's what's happening. And the incentives and the steps are not going to create that even more.
Probably less risk.
Well, they definitely don't answer the number of calls we do, so,
And I appreciate, it's to be a policeman now with all this crazy national police sentiments going around. Hope that's going to end
it's discouraging.
at election time. But I admire what you guys do. It's going to be hard to recruit
It is.
if with the diminished salary or diminished incomes. And appreciate what you guys do. But if you get me, I'll look in my book.
I'll get it. I'll get it
No,
to
let me
you.
look at my book first. Let's talk.
All right.
Let's chat. But appreciate you.
Thank you. Sure.
Couple more things. I think you get the message, there's no money.
Right.
So
Same message every year.
I'll touch on that. First off, on a more personal note, it obviously has bothered you to the point that pretty obvious to change your body language when you started down the part of that
I
conversation.
apologize.
And so, it's obviously an uncomfortable conversation, but one that you felt like needed to be had. I appreciate your courage doing that, or your comfort level on the board, whichever one it is. So thank you for that. I've had the opportunity to travel. You and I have had this conversation yet, but talking to other sheriffs in other western counties, and not that it makes your situation any better, but we're all fighting the same situation in regards to law enforcement. And they all tell me the same thing, that it's a calling to do.
Absolutely.
And they also all tell me the same thing, and there's less people in that calling.
Absolutely.
So I got in a situation, just a quick story, where we felt like we were a training ground for a lot of other companies. And we blamed it on all the other companies to begin with, and then we finally looked in the mirror and realized it wasn't other companies, it was us. And in your world, I don't know what's most important, but in our world, a lot of us fringe benefits, there's extra uniforms, there's extra Coggins and all other things that we were doing that were not, they were nice to have, but they wasn't necessary, took dollars away from an area that we identified as being a priority for those employees that we were looking at. So we kind of, and I say this so you can have this in the back of your mind as you're having conversations with the county manager. You know, it might be one of those situations where you need to look at all of that and allocate it where it's most needed. It may always be there, I don't know, but I just know from personal experience that we were able to do that, and we were able to move forward with a staff, something to know. So, you know, I think, and I had a gentleman, we were having this conversation, and he said, we were talking about all the different things, insurance, uniforms, all handcuffs, and all the things that cost money that take that employee from $35,000 to $100,000 a year position. And he was quick to say, well, I appreciate that, but if I can't cash it every 2 weeks and make a deposit, then it's kind of relative. So I think that was what was important to those employees, and I would just encourage you to make sure that you're doing that. I think, you know, how many people are in your organization?
86, 87.
So, in a perfect world, you're going to have turnover. In the world we live in, regards to being law enforcement officers, certainly not a perfect world. So, I think that you're being here and bringing this up is proof of that, but you're going to have to do those extra things to be able to retain those deputies, to keep running, because he's slammed with work, can't get enough help. Paul is too. I would do that. But anyhow, you know, you got that, and then you've got to be able to lure those guys and gals in to fill those slots that are retiring.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
So I think, you know, I agree with what's been said. It's a horrible year. It's a horrible year for a lot of departments.
I give you the benefit of saying you got a good excuse this year.
but if we, you know, if we'd have done something last year, then we would be having a conversation. So I encourage you not to be discouraged, and I believe that your liaison will work to make that happen. I hope I'm here when that happens, because I'll be a part of that. But as has been mentioned earlier, we don't know what the future can hold. We may not be in that position.
Anything else?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Sorry it took so long.
Thank your staff too, Sheriff.
Good job.
Okay, Derek Rowland, real quick, what do you got in administration?
County continues to provide virtually all services that we did prior to COVID-19, continue with enhanced cleaning, sanitation efforts, and doing everything we can to protect the public as well as the county employees. We have ran into something that I'd like to bring to the attention of the board tonight. If you'll recall, we've talked about the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. There was legislation passed that took effect in April 1st of 2020. And basically what, as part of that legislation, employees are granted up to 80 hours for COVID-related sick leave. And that is either sick leave because they've been exposed, tested, out on quarantine, or sick leave due to their having to take care of children. Both of those are permitted under the emergency sick leave portion of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. But again, that took effect April 1st, 2020. Now, if you recall, COVID, as discussed with this board, was happening well in advance of April 1st, 2020. We did have employees who were exposed, who had child care quandary as outlined in the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, that had to use sick leave, their own personal sick leave, to accommodate these things that were now covered beginning April 1st. But because it was prior to that, they have had to use their own sick leave. And again, we had 8 employees from 7 different departments that during that time, those employees accumulated, between all of them, had 186.75 hours of sick leave that they had to use for coronavirus-related leave that would have been covered had that happened after April 1. What I would ask the board to do at this time is to reimburse this 186.75 hours that will be divided across these 10 employees, and it will go back into their sick leave accumulation. It's not a cash payout, it's not anything like that. It is putting these hours back on their sick leave. We have them ranging here, the highest being 51.5, the lowest being 10.
Any questions for the county manager about the sick leave reimbursement of the hours?
What was the name of that
Family First
Family
Coronavirus
First.
Response Act.
If no questions for the county manager on the sick leave, we would entertain a motion to approve the reimbursement of the 186.75 hours to the sick leave of these employees.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorizing the county manager to reimburse 186.75 hours of sick leave back to 11 employees, 8 employees?
8, yes, sir.
8 employees. Any other discussion?
Is this just for this county, or is this Family First Corona Act? Is that in North Carolina law now? Or is
It's a United federal.
It's a federal program.
When you have access to
Yeah.
that? Because a lot of the teachers, they will ask you about those type things.
Well, I'm sure the schools have done already use it quite a bit.
They do.
Yeah.
But this is just for us.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
If I could, one more thing. To add to this, now we're running into the situation where we have, with the delayed testing, it is resulting in some departments, especially health department, if Kathy has an employee go out and they have to be tested for COVID and they test positive, then they're required to get another test or quarantine for 14 days, come back and get another test. And I think the health department requires 2 negative tests before they can come back. So now with this going into effect, I just want you to be aware that, we have employees now that because of the delay in testing, because after you get tested, it takes 6 to 7 days to get the test back, that we now have employees that burn through the emergency medical leave and have to get into their own sick time because of no fault of their own, but because of the delay in the tests that we're seeing. So what we're going to try to do is get, and it's not going to be a large number, but try to get a number on that as well in terms of the sick leave in these few instances where that because the employee tests negative, but they have to wait an additional 6 days to get that negative result back. That whole time, they're either burning their own sick leave, or they're having to sometimes, if it's a new employee that has just started and hasn't accumulated much sick leave, if they can't get someone to donate leave through an internal program we have to them, then they're in trouble.
So you think we'll have something in August that we can look at?
Yes, we should be able to look at that in August, and hopefully this testing situation will continue to improve. And just this, for instance, it goes, say if John Doe had 25 hours sick leave, and he had to, he had burnt 5 of his own on this prior to April 1st, 2020. All that's happening with this situation is that 5 hours is getting applied back to his sick leave bank. The value monetarily of that 186,000 or the 186 hours of sick leave is $3,600. Again, those employees carry that sick leave, and it can either go towards their retirement or they use it when they're sick. This should be significantly, we're talking about a significantly less amount with what we would be bringing before you in August, and potentially what if the delay in testing continues.
There's an asked the question, why couldn't this board tonight just give you the authorization to do that? I don't see this board denying that because it's no fault of their own, like you say.
We can certainly.
Can we just not by agreement tell you that that's under the county manager's power to do that and let you go ahead? I mean.
Yes, and we'll provide with an update of anything we do.
Because there's no reason to keep bringing that back and forth to the board. I don't know what the others think. I mean,
Why do we need 2 negative?
That's part of the protocol that the CDC recommends, and I am asking for the strictest of response so that when they come back to the health department, I am absolutely sure that person is not positive, because they're in the testing process.
That's one. Now, another department, now, that is in the health department only. Any other department is going to be one negative test that may come back. So,
And how much space between those tests do you require?
Could be a week.
Pardon?
It could run, as soon as they get their first negative, they get retested, and it could be a week. I'm sorry.
Can't hear you with the...
As soon as they get the first test that comes back negative, they get retested, and it's usually about a week per test.
you've got 2 weeks right there, and if somebody's already been out 14 days,
It's a month.
I mean, you're over your 8, you're over that 8. But that, again, the health department is it's a unique situation because, like Kathy said, they're right there in the test environment, so she's being extra cautious. And wants to make sure that environment stays sanitary to the fullest extent possible. We've had other departments where an employee has tested positive, stayed out 14 days, got negative test result, came back to work. That's how the majority of any other departments would handle that.
But make sure I understand
Oh, go ahead.
the timing. I start feeling bad. Okay. And I take the test today. Kathy sent me home. It's going to be 6 days before that test comes back. A test comes back positive. It's not 14 days from the 6th day.
No. It's, we
Is
base,
it 14 days from the 6th day or 14 days from the day I took the test?
it's actually determined on the onset of symptoms. And then it's, the medical director looks at 2 days prior to that. And we're looking at contacts, so who we're looking at. Them being out as soon as we know that they're positive. It could be, we had a staff person that it took 2 weeks for them to get over their symptoms before they could be tested the first time to see if they were negative. And then it took a week to get that test back. They were negative. And then their second negative, because they took immediately, and then it was another week. So it was 4 weeks altogether.
I'm sorry, I'm still not following it. Let's go back to my example. I tested positive, started coughing today.
We tested
You
immediately.
said, Carl, you need to get tested,
Right.
and you need to go home.
We were,
That's on day 0. So in 6 days, that test comes back positive.
and they're quarantining it while they're waiting on the test result. They're not at work.
And I'm quarantined those 6 days. So the 14 starts when I did the test or
Yeah.
at the 6th day.
We need to test.
Okay. And then, so I'm quarantined for 14 days, and at the end of that 14 days, I go take a test, and it comes back negative. So, but I got 6 days for that. So with 14 days plus 6 days, it comes back negative, then you'll earn 2 negatives. So I take another one, so I'm 14 days plus 6 plus 6.
Exactly. And when LabCorp was having a quicker turnaround, it didn't stretch out that long. But right now, in particular, because
This is just for the other part.
So why are you waiting 6 days if at the end of the 14th day, if you want 2 tests to make sure the tests are right, why wouldn't you test the person twice a day? So that the 6, you'd only be adding 6 more days of out of service time instead of 12.
that's the CDC protocol. It has to be a 24-hour difference in test that day, at minimum 24 hours.
So they want you to wait 6 days between tests?
It's just taking that long right now. They expect you to wait 24 hours at a minimum. But because LabCorp is taking 6 days right now to get the results back, we don't get that first negative test back.
So back to the question, does anybody have a problem on the board with authorizing the county manager on these unique situations? You said there wouldn't be many.
Well, and it's not going to be me, and it is to the point where, I think we might be only talking about a single isolated instance where this happened. If any other instances happen, we need to address those as well. But we have a situation here that an employee through nothing other than a delay in testing is
Board,
happening.
what do you think? You have a consensus to give the county manager permission to go ahead and he can give us a report back in office?
Keep us informed. I think you need a motion to that effect.
Do we have a motion to that effect authorizing the county manager to proceed with sick leave time and reimbursement to those because of COVID-19 and reimburse those employees as needed?
I make that motion as you present.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded that we authorize the county manager, giving him permission from this board to examine each and every case when it comes to sick leave reimbursement. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, is that all, Mr. Manager?
Thank you.
I had asked, he's been so patient to wait, Dr. Christopher Baldwin, Superintendent of Macon County Schools, who, speaking of stress, I will say this before Dr. Baldwin starts. We've had a couple of meetings the liaison committee and Dr. Baldwin. Just like everybody else that stood at that podium in the last hour, Chris, we sympathize with you and your board too. I mean, it's, so what, I've asked Chris to come forward tonight and talk about, number one, what the governor had to say this afternoon, and he's not.
Opportunity. I know that there are a lot of people that want to know what school year 2021 is going to look like, so I'm more than happy to come and share what I do know. Before I start though, just what you said, I know that there are a lot of challenges that we're all going to be facing. We've already faced this spring and will continue to face for the foreseeable future. But one of the things that I'm grateful for is that in Macon County, working with all the departments, Sheriff's Department, Warren's Department, Kathy's Department, they're all good people. And I've known Adam my whole life, and many of his other deputies and SROs for the past 30 years, and they're all good quality people, as all the others departments are. We serve 35,000 other very good people. And together we'll face a lot of challenges over the next several months, but we'll come through it. Just to give you an idea what the school system's been facing, just go back to March 13th. March 13th, the CDC released the new guidelines for schools, and they said that they did not recommend school closures. 14 days did nothing to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The closure of 2 months had minor mitigation effects of COVID-19. So I felt relieved by what CDC released on March the 13th. Had a superintendent's meeting where the school board attorneys met with us and shared what it would look like in the event of a school closure, and more or less told us that at some point a school closure was coming, which was in direct contradiction to what the CDC had just released. Came home that afternoon, the governor made an announcement at 4 o'clock and basically said that he was going to go with the CDC's recommendation. No preemptive school closures were recommended. And then Friday night, at March 13th, my phone started ringing. Principals had questions about possible exposures at 3 different schools. How would we handle that Monday? I was on the phone with the then director, Carmen Rocco, how to handle that, school nurses, how to handle that situation. And on March the 14th, the governor had another announcement, that was that schools were closed for 2 weeks. In a matter of 24 hours, we were all over the place in terms of how we want to handle COVID-19. And I can tell you that it hasn't changed much since March the 13th. Every time I open my email, something new is going on. We learned at the end of the school year, after a lot of trial and error with regard to remote learning, some things that we did well, some things that we need to improve in the event that we go to remote learning in 2021. We also learned at the end of the school year that we had to prepare for 4 possibilities with regard to school year 2021. A plan A, which was minimal social distancing, a plan B, which was moderate social distancing, and plan C, which was complete remote learning. But there was also a 4th plan, and that was for us to provide the option for remote learning for any parent who might be uncomfortable sending their children back to school. So that's 4 plans that we have to prepare for, and really we know that at some point we're going to be in plan A, we're going to be in plan B, we're going to be in plan C, and we're going to offer those remote learning opportunities. Today, we found out that the governor's recommendation is that every school system begin the school year in plan B. School systems have the option to go start the school year in plan C, but not in plan A. The plan B that the governor released today has some subtle differences from the plan B that we were planning for. Particularly, the wording in the plan that was released does not include 50% capacity. It specifies that we will have only enough students in a building that we can maintain 6 feet of separation. That's a subtle difference. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on our plan B, but we do need to go back and look and make sure. that we can't actually allow more students in our buildings. So we've got to go with the principals to make sure that we don't need to modify our current Plan B before we take it to the board Monday night. Another subtle difference is that we're planning to provide masks or require masks for all employees and any child above age 11. The governor's Plan B specifies that all students K-12 will be required to wear masks. Some of the things that we've got to prepare for in either Plan A or Plan B is temperature checks for all students and staff before they enter our facilities or our transportation. That means we have to take a temperature of every single child and adult before they get on the bus or come in our building. Even at half capacity, that means we'll have to check the temperature of 500 students at Macon High School, 300 students at Macon Middle School, Mountain View Intermediate. We've purchased 400, or are in the process of purchasing, I think, around 400 handheld thermometers. But we've also purchased 20 or more kiosks that will measure the temperature of any child that passes through the kiosk at a rate of about 70 students per minute. If we don't have those devices, it'll take us hours to screen every child coming through that building. In addition to screening the children for temperature, we also have to have a symptom screening. We have to ask them a series of questions regarding if they visited any hot spots, if they have any new symptoms or anything like that. Parents can provide an attestation form that addresses many of those things, but we still have to screen every child for symptoms when they get on our campuses. It's going to be.
Before we move on, we want to make sure that everybody understands what you just said, especially when it comes to the transportation.
Yes.
We've had this discussion. The school liaison committees have had this discussion, and go into a little bit more depth to that with this board and explain when you say, it's easy to miss if you start checking the temperature of every kid getting on the bus and logging that temperature. Number one, where's that person going to come from? The easiest questions that we brought up. So talk about that a little bit more about the transportation issues and the challenges, especially in a rural community like Macon.
In order for us to screen the temperature of every child that gets on the bus, that's going to require another adult besides the bus driver. The bus driver, for instance, has to have their temperature checked. That's going to, in order for us to do it fairly and accurately, another adult to screen the bus driver before they actually get on the bus. So we'll have to have a bus assistant that will not only screen every child that gets on the bus for the temperature, but also help maintain that social distancing once they get on the bus. Now, in order to provide that, if we can get our teacher assistants, if we get 50 teacher assistants or teachers to be willing to get on a bus in the morning, if we pay them $25 to ride a bus, we're looking at $175,000 if this lasts for 100 days. It lasts for 180 days, the entire school year. We're looking at $240,000 just for that bus monitor. No other PPEs and things like that. We're also, in addition to those thermometers and kiosks, we anticipate needing 7 gallons of hand sanitizer per day. That's at a rate of 2 ounces per student per day. We purchased sneeze guards so that our elementary students can be better separated as they're going through their lessons in the classroom. Now, those are just a few of the things that we're facing for the children who are coming back to school. In addition, we're providing signs all over the building that will show them 6 feet of separation, the direction that they should travel in the hall. That's a recommendation that we have one-way halls. That's hard to do in most of our buildings, but we can control the direction that the children are flowing in the hall. Most of our elementary schools are already doing that, so it shouldn't be that much of a problem. So in addition to all the PPEs, we still have to prepare for at least part of the time during the B schedule, or Plan B, we'll be providing remote instruction. Now, one of the issues that we saw this spring was connectivity. That has significant negative impact on our ability to deliver instruction. It varied from class to class as to the number of students who were able to connect well enough with the teacher so that they could take part in a live stream lesson or a video or a class chat or something like that. So, many different classes in Macon County offer different levels of connectivity with their students based on how well the students connect with the class. Some of the things that we're doing to address that, we have purchased a number of jetpacks, wireless devices that if the family, the household, or the community building, church, fire department can receive cellular signal, that site can act as a wireless hotspot. We're hoping that in some of these locations, such as the churches and the community buildings, that small groups of parents may be able to gather and one parent can supervise a group of children, allowing the other parents to go back to work on the days that they have to take part in remote learning, or if they choose to go completely remote. So we have many different challenges. Going back to what you all were discussing about screening and the requirements that you'll be faced with in the event someone tests positive. For the school system, if a student or a staff member is exposed to a person who has tested positive for COVID-19, any staff member or student who is exposed has to stay out of school 14 days. Any student or staff member who tests positive for COVID-19 has to sit out for 10 days. Now here's the thing, this is the issue I'm about to mention. It's going to cause us some real problems and challenges pretty early on in the semester, and I really don't know how to anticipate how big of an issue this is going to be for us. Any student or staff member who experiences a new symptom, at least one symptom, a fever, chills, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, a new cough, or a new loss of taste or smell, that student or staff member with a new symptom has to sit out for 10 days or until they get negative test results, or until they haven't had any symptoms for 3 days, including a fever, without any fever reducing medication. That may be one of the most significant challenges that we face, because we don't have enough substitutes as it is, and if every staff member follows that guideline, we're going to be stretched to provide instruction, and that's either remotely or in person. If a teacher contracts COVID, they won't be able to provide instruction remotely. And I don't know how we're going to provide a substitute in that situation at this point. So we have a lot of challenges, we have a lot to work through. We will be sending out another survey to families and staff. We were planning on sending that out at the end of July, because we sent out a survey around the 1st of June. They gave us some information that we could begin planning on Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and for that remote learning. And that survey told us that 85% of our families wanted live instruction. They wanted to come back to school. 15% wanted to continue on with remote learning. 85% of our staff wanted to return for live instruction. 15% would have preferred to stay in remote learning, or had underlying conditions that required them to stay in remote learning. Now, obviously, since we did that survey, a lot has changed with regard to COVID-19, both in North Carolina and Macon County, and it's become a political issue that's going to play into a lot of how people react to that over the next few months. It's hard for us to predict how that's going to play out in the school system. But we will send out another survey. Depending on the number of parents that choose to do remote learning, now is going to play a huge role in how we meet the requirements of Plan B with regard to social distance within our buildings. So that may affect how our Plan B is actually implemented even after we get it approved Monday night, if it's approved.
Chris, I don't know, speaking on behalf of the board, and they certainly speak for themselves, that we've had this discussion, and we don't envy your position either. It's, I just, what can this board do to help you? And I don't know what we
Well,
can do.
I would say that the first thing is, going back to what Kathy asked, with those nurses, if we have to screen every child that comes in the building, and if a child shows any of those symptoms during the school day or staff member, then we have to isolate that student or staff member in a room in the school building. And I don't know what staff that we have that can provide that screening and also provide the isolation for either the staff member or the student until the parent can come pick the child up or the staff member can get consultation.
Any questions for Superintendent Butler?
How much CARES money did the education system get?
Macon County, to this point, has received $1,087,000.
So that's what's funding all of this
Yes.
initial.
Yeah, now I would say that I do need to point out that if this board hadn't had foresight of funding technology over the past 2 or 3 years to the level that you have, remote learning would not be an option for us right now. And I don't know what we would do in Plan B without the technology that we currently have in the school system. So thank you for that.
So you're comfortable, I mean, you got the funds to do
Well,
what you need to do.
I wouldn't say comfortable. Well, here's where we are with that. What we've been told at this point, now I don't know what this next stimulus package is going to look like. I don't know how much K-12 money is going to be in that. We've been told that we have until December the 31st of 2021 to spend this money. So in other words, that's got to do us this school year and next school year. We've already used about half of it, and the school year hasn't even started. Purchasing all those PPE materials, and what we foresee that we'll need in terms of personnel with regard to those bus monitors. And also, one of the things that CARES Act money does allow for is for us to contract with mental health professionals. So we are budgeting about $150,000 of that to contract with some mental health professionals that will cover some of the schools that aren't currently covered. So we've already used about half that money, and the school year hasn't even started. Do I feel comfortable with that? I'd like to say yes, but it's
We don't know.
no. No.
Chris, let me ask you this, you're dealing also with 3 distinct school systems.
Yes, and that's another thing I need to say. Nantahala Plan B, Nantahala Plan B, the Franklin Area School Plan B, and Highlands Plan B is going to look somewhat different, and they look a lot different. We're still working on the detail of all those plans. We know that there's going to be roughly half the students every day in our building, though. We do know that much.
Chris? A couple of questions. And I'm not trying to get too much into the day-to-day details of how you're going to make this work. I'm glad it's your job, not mine. But let's just assume that as a baseline, let's use 7% that Kathy was showing on the slide, that we got 7% infection rate. We apply the 7% to the future population only. So day school opens and you test. Given today's data, you got a 7% chance, 7% of your teachers are going to test positive that morning. I don't think you keep teachers in the locker and just give out when you need them. What are you going to do? And I'm just picking on East Frank because it's close to us, but let's just say that 3rd grade teacher at East Franklin test positive, and you got 7% of that classroom that tested positive that day. So you stuck them somewhere in an imaginary room, and then you got somebody that you currently don't have today that you can't just put in there. You got to have somebody with them. So that's a position, a body. And then what do you do about that classroom? The 93% of students that are good to go, you lost a teacher, there's not a teacher's assistant. How are you going to handle?
Well, we're going to go as far as we can with substitute teachers, and then I assume at some point we'll have to go remote learning.
So if that, I guess, I apologize if we get too involved in the mechanics of it, but I mean, if you call it, if that happens at 7:45, the teacher, I mean, a substitute, you got to find a substitute, and then they got to make their, I mean, it's.
Well, unfortunately, those type scenarios happen all the time in a school building. We'll find out at 7 o'clock in the morning, or actually, it's usually about 5:30, 6 o'clock, we'll find out that the teacher's sick and can't come to school. And we'll have to make arrangements. Now, a lot of times it would be that, we'd find a sub. I don't think we'll have that opportunity this year. I think we'll run out of subs pretty quick. Most of our subs are over 65. A lot of our subs are over 65. I don't know how many of them are willing to work at this point. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, if we find out that the teacher can get there, we'll try to cover that class. It may be that a teacher has their planning or a teacher assistant. Someone will have to cover the class until we get through school day, and then we'll have to try to make arrangements for the following day. And it may be at that point that class, that particular individual class, has to continue on with remote learning, depending on how sick that teacher is. If they've only tested positive, they may be well enough so that they can continue on with remote learning. But they can't be in the classroom with those kids, and a lot of those kids may be quarantined depending on exposure.
And the details that were revealed today will allow you the flexibility to do that, to allow.
To do what I just described?
To move the schedule around.
Yeah, it depends on if that teacher, if we learn that teacher has tested positive or was exposed on that particular morning at 6 o'clock, then obviously that teacher cannot come to school for 10 days. If they've been exposed, they can't come 14 days. If they test positive, they can't come for 10 days. At that point, if we learn that a teacher's tested positive or been exposed, at that point we'll talk to the health director about how to handle the class with regard to the particular students that they've been in close contact with, which is going to be all of them. And we'll have to make a decision at that point as to whether or not every member of that particular class has to stay home for 10 days and how we'll handle that.
And that gets back to your issue with non-repeat, which ends up coming back to this
School board.
round desk.
I think that.
And the school board's got Coach Goldsmith, you got a full agenda too.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm stepping to this governor today.
We can't forecast every hypothetical situation.
We're all rookies.
Well, I tell you what, we've forecasted about as much as we can forecast. The thing about it is, I am not an epidemiologist. The example I've used is that, in January and February, on a good day, I'm a sorry weatherman. I can't tell if that road's going to be slick or not, but I can call sheriff, I can call DOT, I can call Warren, see what roads are slick and things like that, make a decision about it. But I can do that with this.
Nobody knows.
Nobody
understands it. So,
Any more questions for Dr. Baldwin?
Did I send you an email?
About that tower?
Yeah, the
Yes.
23rd.
Well, I've been answering a lot of emails there. I meant to reply to it.
We were at a planning board meeting the other night. We used the word crisis. Now, you just got a definition to it.
Okay.
And that's what we want to share, that we need more connectivity within our broadband, things like that. We need to open up Macon County a little bit to small town or something like that to try to reach the kids, because what you were saying there, it's going to happen this year.
Yes.
It's just way.
We hope at some point we have all the kids back in the building, but we know we're going to be in Plan B, and we know that a percentage of kids are going to be in remote learning the whole year.
When you talk about, if a teacher gets sniff situation, they have to go home. Who releases them back to work? Is that?
All right. I don't want to get this wrong.
The doctor, have to go to the doctor, or?
If confirmed positive, if they have one symptom, fever, chills, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, new cough, new loss of taste or smell, if confirmed positive, COVID-19 or person has not been tested 10 days since the first symptoms, no fewer than 3 days without the use of fever-reducing medication, and 3 days of symptom improvement, including coughing and shortness of breath. If they get a negative COVID-19 test and have no fever for 24 hours without the use of a fever-reducing medication, and they have felt well for 24 hours, I guess they can go to school there. If confirmed diagnosis other than COVID-19, stomach virus, ear infection, then they can just follow the normal protocols for returning to it.
On the 80 hours, this emergency medical leave, is that already discussed?
Not for 2021. That's something that we are unclear on right now. That's something that Human Resources has a clear direction on for school year 2021. We know we were able to do it this spring, but we don't know how long that's going to last in 2021. Do you, Derek, for 2021?
Is that December 31st too?
Yeah.
Is it up until December 31st now?
Until December 31st.
I've not heard that from.
That was what was in the initial legislation.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just hadn't heard that before.
Okay.
Well, Chris, I guess the 17th is a month away.
Yeah, and, I'll tell you what, we're looking forward to seeing some kids back in the buildings. I don't know how long we'll get to keep them, but we're looking forward to having them back.
We'll keep the board informed, this board, Chris. Same to you, Coach Goldsmith.
Thank y'all.
Your board's got it sorted too. Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. Okay, we need to move on rather quickly if we can. Under new business, we have old business. Under new business, consideration of a resolution to abandon a portion of State Road 1140, McConnell Road. A letter from Mr. Andy Russell, District Engineer, the property owners, along the final portion of McConnell Road, has contacted our Andrews District Office and requested North Carolina Department of Transportation to abandon the final 2,680 feet of SR 1140 McConnell Road from the state maintained road system in Macon County. All property owners having legal means of ingress and egress have been notified of our intentions and are in agreement with the abandonment of this facility. North Carolina Department of Transportation will retain the initial 2,072 feet of SR 1140 McConnell Road and continue routine maintenance operations up to the point of proposed abandonment. I am therefore requesting the Macon County Board of Consideration adopting a resolution to abandon the portion of SR 1140 beginning at Survey Station 20 plus 72 and ending at Survey Station 40-52 from the state maintained road system of Macon County. Sincerely, Andy Russell. Do we have a motion? We have that. We also have the Division of Highways Abandonment Petition signed by all the members of his text. Do we have a motion to abandon this section road?
Mr. Chair, I prepared the resolution in connection with that. You just need a motion to approve that resolution.
And a motion, along with that motion, to approve the resolution prepared by our attorney.
So moved, Mr. Vice.
Motion been made and seconded. We approve the resolution of the abandonment on the Highway 1140. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? New fees from the Macon County Public Health Director. Kathy, you're on again.
The fees that were presented for you were fees that have come up recently as we have moved to pretty much remote services ourselves. There are fees based on telephonic services, that are now available to us that we just need to put on our fee plan. And of course, the COVID testing fee on our fee plan. It's just formalizing the process of putting it on our fee plan.
Motion to approve. Vice Chair.
We have a motion and a second that we approve the changes to the Macon County Health Department fee structure. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consideration of the presentation. I'm so sorry. Presentation, Macon County Community Needs Assessment Report. We welcome the town of Franklin employee, Mr. Justin Setzer, from the Macon County Planning Board. Justin, thank you for your work on the planning board, what you do for the folks every day in your job.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Setzer starts, I want to make sure to call attention to the efforts that the planning board made in doing this. This was another one of those community tours. I think you went on one of those.
Once upon a time.
Planning board in the previous life. But, you know, the planning board elected to go from community to community because they felt like that was the best way to get input from community members. As we all know, that planning board is a very high paid position, but they took it upon themselves to gather up and go to all communities and meet folks. And some was very well attended and some were not. But one thing that, and Justin may want to speak to this, but one thing that I think we can say is the folks appreciated it. They were very happy to see the planning board there. And I think there was a lot of honest conversation that took place. So thank you to you having the planning board and staff work with the planning board for doing the first class job.
Thank you, Carla. Again, I'm happy to be here tonight. Thanks for letting me present this presentation. This was put together by Jack and Joe, planning department. So they compiled this from everything that we heard from doing the county tour of all the communities. So on the second page, or page 1 in your document, you'll see in highlight in bold the planning board, before we decided to tackle the community needs, we tried to come up with how we were going to compile or what areas we were going to look into. And being that commissioners had just recently passed the comprehensive plan, we took the main areas of comprehensive plan: the public safety, housing, recreation, education, healthcare, transportation, and economic development, and we added another in there in case there was something that didn't fit in that. And when we went to all the communities, we told people we had those areas up on a wall with a big piece of paper, and we gave each community member that came 3 sticky notes that were color coded for their top priority, their second priority, and their third priority, and they could write down whatever they wanted. And then we gave them a few minutes to do that. And then after that, we separated them out and then went through and actually discussed each one and let the community members elaborate what they were wanting and so on. The next couple pages you'll see is each community broke down with what the top needs were and so on. And I'm going to skip over that and go to the last 2 pages. If you got any questions on those, we can dive into that. But it took us about a year to go through every communities. But you'll see on your last 2 pages, obviously the top 10, Jack and Joe put the top 10 most frequently requested ones. Number 1, at no surprise, is broadband and cell phone service. It was pretty much on it was either number 1 at most of the communities or was at least mentioned towards the top 3 or on the list. Obviously then there was NC DOT road maintenance,
You said how they broke it down. A lot of that was just your secondary roads. It wasn't really your 41s and your 28 north. It was your secondary roads. Of course, healthcare, hospitals, new hospital, doctors, specialists, that was a big one. The Nantahala community was pretty outspoken about library and community center. Of course, minimum housing, and garbage debris, junk cars, that kind of stuff in front of houses. Recycle center improvements, which I know is something the county's been working on. Of course, affordable housing options, that one was a wide variety, different communities wanted some more housing options. The Little Tennessee River access on the riverside, obviously Otto, that was one they were, I think it was one of their highest ones. Of course, law enforcement presence throughout the community, and then of course business and job growth. And then on the last page, the pie chart broke down where you can see the percentages there on the needs with all the different areas and of the top 10 plus the other ones that did match. They weren't top 10, but combined together made 27% was your other. The planning board worked hard. We went to every community, like that Carl said. Some were, I think Otto had 35 in Otto. That was nothing. And then Nantahala were the next two highest attended community, and then it went down from there. Some we had one or two, and some we didn't have any. But you got any questions about it?
There's some things on the list, of course, we did that when I was on the planning board, we went to every community. And there's some things on here that we can be working on, we hope. Number one, broadband. A lot of people give you lip service throughout the state. No action, no money, but we are working. We're going to talk about that a little bit, I think, tonight. The DOT, we're very fortunate to still have the state doing a road, even though they're broke too. So,
I'll need to speak to that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But one of the benefits, unplanned benefits of this, was when we went to those communities and we asked, the planning board asked those questions, some of the things like DOT maintenance, road maintenance, which is totally outside the county's wheelhouse and planning wheelhouse, we were able to take that information down, funnel that through the county manager to the appropriate, whether it was, and it was a variety of things, from recycle center to road maintenance to transit. I mean, there's a lot of different county departments that participated in reaching out to these communities, and I think we were able, although we didn't plan for it, I think we were able to get communities some answers to some questions that they had, some help that they had because of our presence there.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But we appreciate the planning board here. And the planning board really takes a picture off of this board, and that's just the fact. And they talk about subjects nobody else wants to approach. And that's to thank you for your leadership on that board too. On the, there's some, like the recycling center improvements, had that ever got off the ground or where at?
They're started, I think they've started at Sky Mountain and getting started at, what's the other one? Two of them, Nantahala and Sky Mountain. So, and I'll be happy to get the solid waste director and give you an update if you'd like.
Pictures would be nice of every one of them.
Mr. Manager, just keep sidetracked a little bit. Yes, I apologize for that. I know you mentioned this at least once that I remember, and I had a couple calls in regards to this. When you're coming into the landfill to dump, it closes at a certain time, and prior to that time when it closes, you can't come in past a certain time. And Mr. Bill, I think, requested that there was be some signage that would indicate what that cutoff to us, where folks would know. I think that would be very helpful
That's never been done.
for the folks that are paying.
I'll pay for the sign.
And if the sign's that expensive, I'll split with you, but,
No, just one separate than one, so just a bigger sign than on one name.
Have you read the sign that's there now? What does it say?
4:30, 15 minutes prior to, or something. It needs to be.
You go ahead and read the
What would
sign.
you like to say? What-
Gates close at blank time.
Okay.
It ain't, there's no reason to say that it closes at 4:30, because it closes way before that.
I guess,
I agree with that.
I use this as a comparison, probably not a fair comparison, but when I go to Sunset to eat supper, there's a sign that says it closed 8 o'clock. And if I get there at 7:59, my call will open, make sure the door's unlocked, and I'll go in and get my hamburger and french fries and go home. It doesn't say you gotta be here at 7:15, be done eating and gone by. So I guess just
Could have had.
The considerate person may not, or the considerate customer might do that.
Anyway, Justin, we get back on track to your planning board. How many people are on the planning board at this time?
I think we have any vacancies, Joe? Well, I think we're full right now. I think we've got
We've
11.
got a full, and I know you're not meeting now.
we are.
Oh, you are.
And we met last week.
You meet in person. What are you working on now, Justin?
We're working on some wireless telecommunication changes, updates, which we're gonna have we had a meeting last Thursday, and we're gonna have a continuation meeting on the 23rd. 23rd.
And you're getting good attendance for the planning board meeting?
Yeah, we had 8 at the last meeting.
Good.
So,
What do you want to add to your report, Justin?
one thing I want to add is, former chairman Joe Gill led the majority of this. I only took over the last 2 visits, so I'd like to thank him because he led the majority of these meetings, so I won't forget him.
Before we leave this, do you have a report on Mr. Morgan, Joe, the latest?
He's home.
He is home. Yep, I had that text. He is home. Feeling pretty rough, but he is at home. One thing I would like to add to that report, it didn't make on the top 10 list though, but should be considered when we do have an opening. There was a request for a spot on the planning board from somebody from the Untitled area. When we were over there, they did request that they get representation on that planning board.
There'll be commissioners we'll have. He'll find us one. Anything else, Justin?
Nope, you have a question for me?
Any more questions for Justin?
Thank you, sir.
Got one for Joe.
Sir.
In regard to a meeting on July the 23rd. Are you available this coming Monday the 20th? Can you give me a time?
Anytime you want to meet, Ms. Shields, be fine with me.
Okay, 10:30 Monday,
10:30 Monday.
10:30 Monday. I just want to look at try to get our, what we're doing on that, that package.
It's fine.
We'll do that.
You want to come by the office, Mr. Shields? You want me
Yes,
to-
sir. I'll come to y'all.
Okay.
Will let me in?
I'll let you in.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate all you do and all the planning board does.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Next on the agenda, if I can find it, is what?
So we're on door.
No Wrong Door. This is Lori and I'll just give you a quick report on No Wrong Door. Are we overwhelmed? Yes. Not only with probation people, but just the community needs right now with the mental health situation, substance abuse. Thank you for the support of No Wrong Door, not only on behalf of me, but on behalf of those people and the people who work there every day. Certainly need to be, if you have a chance to thank them, please do so. So with that, Lori, Chester.
Mr. Chairman, I have prepared an agreement to provide substance abuse and mental health services. No Wrong Door has been doing so. Their contract effectively ended at the end of last fiscal year. This agreement would cover the present fiscal year dating back to July 1, 2020 through and including June 30th, 2021.
Is there any questions on the small changes to the No Wrong Door contract? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept is it a resolution?
No, this is just to approve the agreement.
The agreement. Motion made second, we approve the agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and No Wrong Door.
And the sheriff's a party to that as well.
Exactly. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, designation of a voting delegate and alternate voting delegate to the National Annual Conference, which will be held virtually. I'm willing to serve as that voting delegate, and if anybody else would like to be the alternate, that'd be great.
Motion approved, Mr. Bill.
And Mr. Shields is an alternate.
So
Put your
we
eye on me.
Motion been made and seconded that Commissioners Bill be the voting delegate, Commissioner Shields will be the alternate voting delegate to the NCACC annual conference. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? No, that's North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. You think about another ball. Discussion regarding underground storage tank replacement at Macon County School Bus Garage. Your liaison committee has met twice with the school board about this tank, and discussions have continued. It's going to be a recommendation of your the liaison committee that we finish this project up. What we started, we have already paid for the cleanup. We've kept everybody out of the penalty phase. We believe the county is going above and beyond to help the school system with this situation, which has been lingering for a decade. So we'd like to go ahead and finish that up tonight. The county manager will give us the details.
Yes, sir. As Commissioner Bill alluded to, we moved a 10,000 gallon gas tank and a 15,000 gallon underground diesel tank. The gas tank was underground as well. We contracted with an environmental consultant, SM&E, to do that. The original contract amount was $52,800. As you'll recall, when they got in there, they found release from the gasoline tank. We had to remove some more dirt, ended up adding about $21,000 to that contract. When we started this, as Commissioner Bill said, we wanted to be sure and mitigate that environmental violation. We were notified in March that we had 30 days to come into compliance. Jack Morgan worked very hard on this project to get that remedied, so we would not enter a penalty phase, which would have been $1,000 a day plus legal fees that would accompany that from the Department of Environmental Quality. So as of right now, both tanks have been removed, the soil has been hauled off, and we are going to install a monitoring well at that location as called for in that notice of violation that was again delivered to us in March. So with that being said, as far as the mitigation of that environmental hazard, it is well on its way to being complete. We will soon complete it, and we will then be in conversations with the Department of Environmental Quality about the monitoring well. Upon Mr. Morgan's absence, very fortunate to have Mr. Mike Hope here with us tonight. He is the county's building and ground superintendent. He's done a great job picking up the ball and running with it. We have contacted multiple companies concerning the installation of a new diesel tank. The schools indicated they would not need a gas tank, but they do need a diesel tank. Just to give you a little idea, being able to buy this diesel in bulk that will be stored in this tank that I'm about to tell you about, will save the school system an estimated $75,000 a year in diesel fuel. And so what that translates to is, that is money that they can now put in the classroom instead of spending on fuel. So that will be accomplished with the installation of a 12,000-gallon double-wall tank that we have received a quote on, and for $110,000, the tank installation and materials total $108,175, and that is to get that tank erected, to get that tank installed. Mike has been working with our fire marshal, building code. We're certain that this tank can go on there, but as Commissioner Bill will allude to the recommendation of the liaison committee, we feel like this is a good quote, a good proposal, and if the recommendation as proposed by the liaison committee goes through, we would pass this project on to the school board with the funding needed to accomplish the installation of this tank. So with that being said, that's all I have.
Two questions. The installation of the monitoring well it's in the contract to do?
It's in our contract with SNE. Yeah.
Okay, that's not an additional cost?
No.
And the new tanks are going to be above ground tank?
The new tank is above ground, 12,000 gallon. The old one was 15, but the max that the state will let you have is 12,000 gallon. Now, there will be there's a 10 to 12 week lag in when this tank can be constructed. So what we've arranged, the guys at the garage have been able to get our pumper truck up and working. It's 6,000 gallons. So I've talked with 1K and the fire marshal. That's perfectly acceptable with the school system during this time period. Needs to rely on that. I've spoken with the sheriff. It's actually the sheriff's department tanker that they acquired through a federal program, so many years back. So the sheriff is okay with it. All the parties have signed off on it, so we do have something to get them through that immediate need while this new tank is being installed.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, sir. The only thing I would say is we got two bids. One was for a double wall tank, one was what we call a fire guard tank. We have to look at the fire guard tank because of the codes. With just the double wall, we would not meet North Carolina codes. And that's the reason that there's double wall is cheaper, but we can't go with double wall. We got to go with the fire guard tank in order to meet those North Carolina codes.
Okay. Any questions for the county manager or maintenance director code for Joe? If not, we'll entertain a motion that we take money out of, we are going to take this out of the fund balance, right, as a one-time expense, correct? One-time expense in the total of $110,000 total.
Yeah, little round it.
And then we release our responsibility to let the school board, make sure we understand this, let the school board is going to handle it from the time that we pay for the tank, correct?
We'll earmark the $110,000 to go toward tank installation.
It'd be just like any other capital outlay. We'll put that in our budget. The school will handle the bidding of the tank, the installation, etc. Then they pay the invoice, then they'll send me a copy of the invoice and the check, and I'll reimburse them. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Lori, county manager, Mike, Joe?
Make a motion to be approved. As you said, $110,000. To install above ground tank, a diesel, 12,000 gallons.
Motion been made and seconded that we take $110,000 from our fund balance of Macon County for the purchase of a diesel tank for Macon County school system. Any further discussion?
Just one comment. You recognize several people, but one I think needs to be recognized as county manager. He's the traffic director, and he was able to direct the traffic on this one to get all different people involved that need to be to come up with an equitable solution. I would challenge anybody that thinks that didn't happen, so thank you, Chairman.
Your executive liaison committee do that.
Our liaison committee for working together to make this work for the school.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have Tommy Jenkins. I asked Tommy to come real quickly to give us a report on our loan program that we approved for our small businesses. And so I asked Tommy for a quick report. Tommy, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Enjoyable as usual. This will be quick. I'll give you a couple of quick reports.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike.
On our reopening Macon fund, we've got $58,000 applied for. And of that, there's 35,000 that has been approved or in underwriting at the moment, so. It's
35 approved of the 58 that you applied for. Okay.
How many people make up the 35? Let's see, those are 8 applications. I anticipate as some of the federal programs wind down, if they do, this will come into be used more steadily as we move along. One other thing I want to bring to y'all's attention, I ran some numbers on the number of PPP loans under 150,000 in Macon County. In Franklin, there were 341. Highlands 150, Otto 17, Scaly Mountain 8, and Hopkins 7 that were funded. As far as PPP loans over 150,000, there were 17 in the Franklin area and 17 in the Highlands Scaly area. So a lot of our local businesses take advantage of that. I think that's good.
Thank you, Tommy, for taking care of the loan program, too. Any questions for Tommy? Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate it. On the consent agenda, you'll see the minutes, the budget amendments, 9 through 23, tax releases for June, the amount of $513. Refunds stemming from Property Tax Commission appeal, $415. Monthly ad valorem tax collection report. Do we have anything anybody like to put in the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept.
Make a motion to accept.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. We accept the consent agenda with attachment number 12 as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? On the appointments, we have one appointment of the Highlands Tourism Development Commission. We have one seat available. Mr. Wood, his recommendation, per Chairman Tate, consideration of John Woods as a member of the Highlands Tourism Development Commission, representing the Highlands Cassia Chamber of Commerce. The term of office will be for 3 years, expiring July 14, 2023. Any comments on Mr. Wood? Do we have a nomination if it's kept?
Move to accept the nomination.
Motion been made and seconded to accept the nomination of Mr. John Woods as a member of the Highlands Tourism Development Commission, representing the Highlands Chamber of Commerce. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will entertain a motion now for a closed session allowed under North Virginia statute for attorney-client privilege regarding real property. We have such a motion.
As well as general attorney-client privilege.
As well as general attorney-client privilege. We expect no action. Do we?
Yes, there will be action.
We do expect action. There'll be action so moved by Commissioner Gillespie, seconded by Commissioner Shields. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And so if you will hang around for what's coming out of closed session, it should not be very long. Thank you.